Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting of the Recreation and Park Commission to order at 5:32. Sound good? Okay, at 5:32. And if you please rise, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we'll take care of our roll call.
All right. So, Commissioner from District 1, Estrada.
Here.
Commissioner from District 2, Adina Gonzalez. Absent. Commissioner from District 4, Marcus S. Arellano.
Here.
Commissioner from District 5, April P. Holloway.
Here.
Commissioner at Large, Marissa K. Lewis. And then Chair John R. Carlos for District 3.
Here.
All right. Ex officio, second alt, Fu Zhang. Absent. Ex officio, Sarah Boyle. Absent. Ex officio, first alt, Darren S. DuPont. Absent.
Our next item is public comment period.
At this time,
If there's something you'd like to talk about that's not on the agenda, this would be the time. If you want to deal with something on the master plan, we'll be getting into that in just a couple minutes. So it's not about the master plan. Hey, come on up, anything you want to say?
sorry to interrupt. Could you please turn on your mic?
Green light, all right. So my name is Lance Eber. I live on Bedford Drive in the city of Merced. I'm 56 years old, and I've been hanging out at the Joe Hurd softball fields for over 30 years playing slow pitch softball. We had our first game of our, I guess it's called Winter League this week. And I just want to talk about the field conditions and what's going on out there. It's ironic that when I came home from the fields last night and looked to see when the next meeting was for this, it was today. And when I looked at the agenda, there's talked about master plans and all the stuff that's going on at all the parks. So it seems very ironic and positively coincidental. So I played on field 3 last night. There's always a reason for something being done, I'm sure. But last night, the third baseline that's supposed to go from home plate to the foul pole was at least 2 feet off. So the foul line didn't even go to the foul pole in left field down the third baseline, which means third base wasn't even touching the foul line on third base side. Something's been done to the field condition in our time since Summer League ended. Maybe some sand has been added to the infield, but it's not sand, it's not dirt. It's something in between, but it's something at a quality where when you step in it and you're running, you just can't run. Your foot slides, your ankles twist, you can't move. So it's very hard to run the bases. And this has just been a condition that's going on for years. And as a 56-year-old guy nearing the end of my softball career soon, hopefully not too soon, I'd like to be able to keep playing and not get hurt out there. After the first game at 6 o'clock, there's games at 7, 8, and 9. The batter's boxes are already big holes because the guys that play in the first game dig their feet in there, and it's just a big hole there. Can't even plant your feet. So it was ironic that I saw this on your guys' agenda tonight. You guys had some open house meetings about Joe Herb, and I was looking at the sticky notes of what community members put on there, what they wanted to see, but none of that had to do with really the conditions of the softball field. They wanted to see walkways, they wanted to see skate parks, they wanted to see more lights, they wanted Wi-Fi for the teenagers, but potential improvements were nice. Number 1 was conduct, and they weren't actually numerical, it was just the top bullet point. Conduct general maintenance for the parking lot, lawns, lighting, playground, and sports fields. That's good. The third bullet was enhance maintenance for the softball fields to ensure safe playing conditions, addressing issues like grass patches, holes, lighting, and watering. So those are really big concerns for us that play softball out. The outfield, I don't know how many nights softball is played out there. Right now, it's only Tuesday, I think, and maybe there's a night for co-ed. Back when I was in my late 30s and 40s, we were out there 5 days a week. So I don't know if anything goes on Monday or Tuesday, but it would really be nice to have the outfield grass mowed on Tuesday. It's hard to run when the grass is tall. And when the grass is tall, it hides the unevenness of the surface. So I work at the City of Merced Police Department. We have a police department team, and you've got a team that's 100% city employees. One of us gets hurt out there playing the outfield and twists our ankles. We're not coming to work the next day and maybe the next. So the field conditions of the outfield just need to be worked on. I know there was a lot of stuff about Joe Herb getting some money or something a while back, a few months ago. But last night was just kind of the tip of the iceberg for me. I wanted to come address it. At the third base on field 3, there's a big trench right in front of the base. So balls are being hit and they're bouncing sideways. They're not even going as a true ground ball anymore. When the ground balls hit that soft, I don't even know what you can call it. It's not dirt and it's not sand. But it hits it and it just kind of stops, or it bounces slower. I mean, it's taken away from the fun and the pureness of adult slow pitch softball for us that want to relive our glory days as baseball players when we were teenagers. And I don't know what kind of money it takes. I mean, I did some math here. It costs $550 a team to play. There's 24 teams. You collected $13,200. I made a guess that an ump makes $50 a game. Maybe that's high. I'm hoping it's high. And there's 48 games in the first half. You pay $2,400 to umps. A second half, you're paying $4,800 to umps. About 24 playoff games, $1,200. So you're spending $6,000 of that $13,000 just on umpires. So what other expenses are there that could be used to offset some of these things to fix the field? I mean, I know you got to pay for the lights. You probably got to buy balls. You got to paint the fields for us every week, which is nice with your little robot, but your robot was crooked for Tuesday. And then you got to buy T-shirts for the champions. You know, champions want a T-shirt. I get it.
Sorry to interrupt, but your 3 minutes have been completed for public comment.
Okay. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening.
Okay, I don't think we have that big a crowd that we really need to watch the clock so closely tonight, but I appreciate the input. We'll sort of refer that to staff to pass along to Parks Maintenance to build a flame about that tall, under a butt about that tall. Yeah, safety is a prime consideration there. Okay, moving on to action items. Item E1, something near and dear to our hearts, the Park Recreation and Open Space Master Plan.
Good evening.
Go ahead and turn this over to Chris.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Chris Jensen, Parks and Community Services Director. Thank you very much for being willing to accommodate our timeline and have a special meeting tonight to consider the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I know we did a preliminary review with you last month at your recreation meeting. Tonight's item is to get a little more detailed review into the actual strategic action plan, and hopefully create a recommendation or get some feedback on some last minute adjustments that you would like to see made to the action plan. The process of where we go from here is get the input from the commission through the study session, go back to you Monday night of next week for hopefully adopting a recommendation for council's consideration to adopt the plan. And then we would do a replica of this month's process with the commission for our council, in which in September, we'd have a similar study session for city council to get into the weeds on the plan a little bit. And then hopefully, if not late September, early October, have it formally adopted. Just to kind of set the stage for what we're here to do this evening, there's 3 items before you that we would like to walk away from you with, 1 being identified, either to approve the master plan as presented, recommending also that council consider it for adoption with your approval and recommendation, or if there's any adjustments that you would like to see made, specific actions or activities or programs or further analysis, we make those modifications tomorrow in preparation for posting the Monday night agenda tomorrow evening, and hopefully bring it back to you with those modifications made in that time, and then you can consider adopting Monday instead of this evening. So tonight's review is mainly to get either a consensus to move forward as is, or make any modifications you see fit, and then we try to make those within the next 24 hours so you can consider adopting on Monday. A little bit of housekeeping, just because this is a special meeting. We're in a different forum and a unique format, being a Thursday. Restrooms are out the doors there to the right, just around the corner on the first floor here. If we do end up having public comment after the presentation, if we have speakers that come in, we can open that up and public comments available at the podium there. And the goal tonight is for you to be as comfortable as possible with the contents of this plan. So I'm going to review what got us here. There's lots of documentation that's been provided to you since the last commission meeting. And what we're asking is not for any of you to be scholars of this information, but to be stakeholders and stewards who understand what our next steps, our action steps as a result of this big planning process are, what we're committing to moving forward. So it's not so much so we can pass a DMV test, thankfully, after this is done, but it's really to make sure that you have an in-depth understanding of what we did to get to where we are tonight, and consideration of the strategic action plan, which would be the steps we take to address the issues that were identified and kind of rose to the top from the community input we gathered. So for context, everybody's got a few documents in front of you. Everybody should have the PROS plan, which is Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. This is the full packet. It should be two-sided. It's a nice rich color for you. This is a reference document that talks about everything we did over the last year and a half to meet with community members, meet with other stakeholders, meet with our elected officials, and even some of our staff. This was carried out through an external funder. Central Valley Opportunity Fund funded the city of Merced to carry out this plan and update it. It hadn't been updated since 2009. As we talked about at the last commission meeting, our community context has changed. Some of our needs and interests have changed, so we wanted to make sure that we had a plan moving programs and policies forward over the next few years that was more up to date. The plan is a great reference tool, and we'll go through some of the highlights of that. The plan ultimately leads to a strategic action plan, which is your Excel sheet here, and that identifies the 4 high-level pillars that rose to the top. These are things that we heard over and over and over again through different formats of collecting information, both from staff, the community, our partners, wisdom holders in the community, focus groups some of you participated in, and even a parks tour. So these 4 areas that are color-coded, which include community connection, maintenance and infrastructure, safety and inclusivity, and resources and stewardship. Those 4 areas have several objectives underneath each that we will take on as actionable items and work to implement over the next 5 to 10 years if you see fit. Any questions on the reference materials that are at your fingertips this evening? Okay, and we'll look back and forth through these documents throughout tonight's presentation, which I'll facilitate. And so if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and get started. So tonight's an opportunity to take a deeper look at this plan that reflects recreation, parks, and open space. More importantly, it establishes a direction for our services, our staff, and our policies. This plan should last us the next 5 to 10 years, so it's an important tool. As staff turnover, we get new leadership, we get new commissioners. This plan should be the guide that keeps our focus steady throughout those changes. This is a study session, so the goal is not to read line by line every single page of the document. This is a reference plan for you. Really, we want to establish a common understanding of where we go from here, which is our pillars or our priorities. So just setting some expectations for tonight, we're moving through 4 major questions. Where are we today? What did we hear from our community? What are we prioritizing moving forward? And what will we do to achieve those priorities? We want to ask you to listen through a couple of different lenses. Does the plan that we developed accurately describe our system in the city of Parks and Community Services, or Parks and Recreation? Are these the right priorities for our community? And if we successfully implement the actions in our action plan, will the department be stronger 5 to 10 years from now to serve the community? We want to begin with a shared baseline. So we want to look at the challenge that's before us, and that is that we're not simply deciding what else we want to build, what new programs we want to do. It's also determining how we responsibly take care of what we already have. We just had a public comment earlier before we started this agenda item. We have a lot of aging infrastructure that requires significant investment to overhaul. Unfortunately, it's not just new dirt for some of our fields, it's complete renovation. And we're just at that point in our system. So the assessment was carried out that included looking at over 43 parks and open spaces in our community that total over 300 acres. We have 6 different park classifications, and we had 5 indoor recreation facilities that we looked at. We have a shared service model, and so Parks and Community Services plans and operates recreation services and facilities, but then Public Works actually is in charge of maintenance of facilities and fields. So there's some shared responsibility there with the conditions in which we offer programs and services through. What you see here in the 2 maps is a pretty interesting reference, and these are from some of the appendices that are in your parks plan. The citywide parks map indicates where parks are located across the city, and then the one to the right indicates parks as well as indoor recreation facilities. So what the analysis of those facilities showed is that we have a challenge during the study session, and we need to evaluate the population, the access that has population to our parks, the population that has access and doesn't to our parks, and the amenity levels of service. So we have a goal in our general plan, which the Parks Master Plan will help inform. The Parks Rec and Open Space Master Plan helps guide our programs, our park infrastructure, our standards, and then that is part of a chapter of our general plan, which is a city standard. And that general plan is under development. We sometimes have park master plans that are developed after a general plan. At the point in time when I came on to the department, our existing plan was so outdated, we really needed to move forward before the general plan was going to be complete. We are communicating routinely with our planning department to make sure that this plan is part of their general plan development moving forward. So the hope is that the standards that we put together here get put into that general plan, and any development that takes place over the next 20 years operates under these standards of practice. So our current standard, and this is a state standard is about 5 acres per 1,000 residents. Today, we are of open space. So open space is very important. It helps people feel connected to nature. It helps people deal with mental health. It helps reduce stress. It helps people stay active. 5 acres is typically a state goal for all municipalities. We are doing much better than a lot of our counterparts, specifically in the Central Valley, in that we're at 3.28 per 1,000 residents. So we're doing well. We're still not at the state goal level, but we're doing pretty well. One thing that I would mention is that as sprawl starts happening in the city of Merced with more and more development, it's going to be very important that we have development standards that lean on the need for open space to be planned for in future developments. It's really important that we have developments of neighborhood parks and bike trails and open space that residents can rely on, that is accessible so they don't have to drive all over the place to access those amenities. The other thing that we found under infrastructure and maintenance was that 18 of the 30 amenity benchmarks currently do not meet comparison levels. So there's 30 industry standards across parks that talk about, are there shade trees? Are there drinking fountains? Are there bike paths? Are there wheelchair accessible entries to playgrounds? Is there lighting? Is there parking? Is there ADA parking? So there's about 30 industry standards, and right now we're only meeting about 18 of those benchmarks. So as far as infrastructure goes, again, it's not any accusation to city staff. Industry standards change. What was required in the 80s and 90s when some of these parks and other open space amenities were dedicated by the city is completely different standards today. The same with our sports programs. So we just have a call to action through this planning process to update our standards of practice. We also looked at an access gap and identified that in North Merced and downtown, park access is more limited. There's not as much developed park. So in Bellevue Ranch, we have a lot of dedicated park sites that are underdeveloped or not developed. In South Merced, what we saw a lot in the gap analysis is there's not a whole lot of trails connectivity. So alternative modes of transportation, active transportation, meaning bicycle, jogging, walking, those amenities don't exist as often in South Merced. And so those were some gaps that the analysis found. How did we get the community engaged when we talked about community voice and setting up what our priorities were? We included a model that focused on 3 ways to engage our community. We identified wisdom holders, we identified focus groups, and we did in-person and online surveys. We had a fantastic turnout. We got over 500 different touch points across our community. We had 1,300 total comments received throughout the year, and we had over 200 people show up to our open house, which I know at least Marissa was able to get to. Were you able to come as well, Marcus? At least a few commissioners were able to come, and parents in our sports programs and seniors from our senior center. That was very well attended, and we had a really good time getting the community input on what the priorities need to be. We also had planning sessions with our own internal staff that I wasn't a part of, so that staff could give our consultants some feedback on training opportunities, standards of practice, evaluation, and there's some things that our plan calls for to address some gaps that they shared. We also had planning sessions with our council and city management to see what's the administrative perspective. Are parks important? Are open spaces important? Are recreation services important? What's their view of them? Do they see us meeting the community need? Is there an interest in expanding what those things are or being more effective or efficient with what resources we have currently? So we had a lot of different touch points from different perspectives across our community, and all of those were used to gather some overarching themes. So the things that kind of rose to the top from all of those different areas were regarding connection. People want parks and services that help build our community. We heard a lot about quality of life, being proud of your community, and people saw an opportunity there. Safety, real and perceived safety in public spaces is a top concern. So ironically, we asked people, what park do you go to the most? And it was, you could probably imagine, right? Most of our community parks, a couple of our neighborhood parks. And then we asked, what parks do you avoid because of safety concerns? The same parks were the most common. So we have parks that are highly desirable. What that tells me is we have parks that are highly desirable that had significant safety concerns preventing other people that would go to them from ever going. So what we know through research is that parks that are active help prevent crime from happening in those locations, and parks that are abandoned because they don't have amenities people want to use, equipment's broken, there's no shade, there's no places for or amenities that encourage you to stay for long periods of time, those parks tend to not be used, and then people come in and use them for illegal or nefarious reasons. And then that leads to even more need to repair, maintain, fix, and renovate. So we had a great community engagement process. Maintenance was another concern. Residents wanted higher cleanliness and maintenance standards. You heard it tonight. Maintenance leads to safety issues. If we're not on the same page with our facility and field maintenance teams that are called to provide those services, we end up with people that turn down services that are being offered because there are safety concerns. We also heard about amenities, splash pads, playgrounds, trails, fitness areas were reoccurring needs that were brought up over and over again, and funding was a constant theme as well. Additional resources are needed to improve the level of service and to acquire the amenities that people want. So there is an interest in supporting additional funding mechanisms to reach the level of service and the quality of life that residents are looking for here in Merced. Okay, the value of gathering this information is ultimately what we do with it. It's great if we sit around and we talk to residents about all the problems and the opportunities, but it's really important that we utilize that information. So this slide is the bridge from that engagement process to the 4 pillars. The master plan tells us where we need to go, and this, the strategic action plan, actually tells us how we intend to get there. So we went from community and staff input, analysis and assessment. We developed 4 pillars or priorities, and then in those 4 priority areas, we have 35 individual strategic actions or objectives, and then the next step would be capital improvement project implementation. So if we have additional funding, what do we want to do? So we put a top 10 project list together as part of this plan. So again, the big point is the master plan, all that assessment tells us where we need to go. The strategic action plan, which is the Excel sheet, tells us what we're going to do to get there. So the first pillar, infrastructure and maintenance. What you'll see on the right are just a couple of those action plans, action items from each section. But here, for example, conduct a comprehensive park and facility asset inventory. What do we have in our parks compared to what our benchmarks that are missing are? Do we need to add more amenities? And if so, what parks need those amenities added? We don't have that inventory list. Develop a comprehensive maintenance management plan. Again, you heard the public comment this evening. What are we doing on a monthly, quarterly, daily, yearly, biannually basis to make sure that our parks, our facilities, and our fields are in a playable, usable, enjoyable condition and meeting community expectations? Position the regional sports complex as a revenue-generating regional asset. We have a couple of regional amenities in Merced. The new regional sports complex is one. It's a huge capital investment. In order to get that venue to cover its cost, it has to be able to generate revenue. It cannot be treated as a neighborhood park where there's just, first come, first served basis. We really have to operate that as a, almost like an enterprise project. The other one that I would say that's not on here but is similar in nature is Merced Applegate Zoo. It is unique in that there's not a zoo in every city in the county. It is a regional amenity, and we have to treat it as such through our programs, our policies, our organizational support and funding. Create implementation plans for current recreational facilities. So if we have recreation facilities like youth centers, recreation centers, senior community centers, how are we actually programming through those amenities? Are we just contracting it out and asking, Mr. Carlos to make sure that the senior community center is programmed and we kind of take our hands off the steering wheel and we just go, well, John's got the answers? Or are we saying, hey, Mr. Carlos, we appreciate your enthusiasm to serve our seniors. We love your program. Here's what we hope to meet as far as senior needs with you utilizing this facility. If it's something that our program is using, what are we trying to accomplish as a result of using it? We're not just being busy, we're being productive, we're meeting community needs. And at the bottom, I think this is the talking point here to just keep in mind, are we striking the right balance between maintaining what we own and developing what the community still needs? We will always have more wants and needs than we have resources for. That's just the nature of doing business. It takes us a while to react. Planning helps, but by the time you accomplish half of these objectives through this plan in year 5, pickleball's gonna transition to badminton, or just as an example, something else, and we're gonna have a new list of needs being generated. So we have to be mobile, we have to be flexible, we have to be agile and responsive to those communities. While we're building new things, we have to make sure that we're also accountable to maintain what we have and those new amenities. If we're putting all of our eggs in the building basket and we're not funding maintenance, we're going to continue to have more public comments like we heard this evening. So the intended outcome for this pillar is really focusing on quality places and spaces, staff and community pride, high level of service, and future needs addressed responsibly. The second pillar, well, let's stop there for just a second since this is a study session. On your strategic action plan, we have Pillar 1, and I apologize if your worksheet doesn't show the title there, infrastructure and maintenance. It's missing on mine. But the orange is infrastructure and maintenance. If you want to write that in, my apologies. And so that the community can follow along, let me jump through here. Here's where we are. The first one is to conduct a comprehensive park asset inventory report. So again, this objective is within the next 5 to 10 years, we want to have a list of all of our 43 parks. What assets do they have or amenities do they have, and what are they missing? And from that MIA list, we can create grant applications. We can put in capital improvement requests, project requests to city council and city administration for consideration. We can also look for partners in the community that may have an interest in helping to add some utility or amenity. I'll give you another really good example that's coming down the pike here next month. We utilize the Gateway to Yosemite 1K, 5K, 10K run to raise funds through community participation to go to some community park asset. This year, it's the Every Pace Wins the Race, the Run for the Tortoise, Elroy and Friends at Merced Applegate Zoo. And the funds that are raised from that will go to that amenity. With this park asset inventory report, we'll have a whole inventory of other parks and other amenities that are needed across our park system that runs fundraising could go to year after year. So there's some mechanisms that we could put into place to address those gaps, but we have to know what all the gaps are at each park first. Any questions about the asset inventory? Are you guys good with that?
Do we currently not have like a standard list? So moving forward, this would be something you would look at for
Correct.
future?
Yes. Historically, I know that the City Parks Division did do a basic list of park amenities like barbecue pits at this park, for example. However, half of the barbecue pits that we installed or that were originally installed have either been mangled, removed completely, or used in a manner that does not allow them for us to actually advertise for people to use. So they become a safety issue. If we're not able to determine what's being burned or cooked in these things, it becomes a concern for us advertising that those things exist. Another example would be some of the parks that we've built recently, we've installed baby changing tables in the restroom. We hear a lot from young parents or parents of any kind or grandparents of children that are going that may not be potty trained yet, that the changing tables are a high interest amenity. We have almost none across our park system. Unless the park has been built in the last 2 years, it doesn't have one. So that's the type of asset inventory that comparing what we have to what the current standards or recommendations are, that hasn't been done. But we do have a basic list that says this is what our parks have. We just haven't compared it to the benchmarks. Yes, sir.
What's the typical cost for changing table?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, you can get them for about $800, and then you have to pay to have it installed. If it's an existing structure, it's not as much as a new structure. Usually there's markup with new facilities. About $1,000, yeah, depending on your contractor.
What I'm thinking is reach out to community groups. Sponsor one here, sponsor one there. You know, Kiwanis, Rotary, Optimus, Lions. We can find $1,000 in our budget in a club somewhere.
Awesome. So what would be fantastic is if we had a menu of needs across our park system, and then we could actually present those menus so that different service clubs or other organizations or even local businesses that may be interested in sponsoring stuff, if they get a little notoriety plaque or something along those lines. And I'll tell you, I've been blown away by the amount of community individuals and organizations that are willing to support our Parks, Rec, and open spaces without any acknowledgement. So, but it is nice to offer that so that folks are recognized for their commitment to our community. That's a great idea, John.
Real quick, the
Yeah.
benchmark list, is that like a standard state list or?
Yeah. So our consultant that provided the facilitation of the planning, the pros plan development, they created brought us the benchmark list. So there's 30 typical park standards that you would see. And so we would use that as a benchmark and go through. And the reality is communities are made differently across the state, right? So there may be things that we just can't do feasibly here. An example would be automated restrooms. That's something that bigger cities are implementing. San Francisco, Stockton, Atwater has piloted one as well. I think it's fantastic, but I haven't been a young family that's been waiting to get in an automated restroom that's locked down for cleaning and it doesn't open the whole time they're there. So there's limitations and liabilities with some of these standards that we would vet with our Public Works Department. There's also concerns about maintenance. So remember, one of our kind of our goals of this planning process was not to just go out and get every single amenity, but also balance that with what can we afford to maintain. maintenance requirements are different in each community. And in our community, we have a high level of need for routine maintenance. So baby changing stations often, might get pulled off the wall. We've had sinks ripped out of walls of restrooms, things that you would never typically think to pull out of a facility get pulled out. And yeah. So we hear from our public works partners quite often that maintenance is a big concern for them. So the more universal, the more interchangeable the parts, the less expensive the amenities, the more willing we are as a system and capable we are as a system to maintain that level of amenity. Enhance the existing aging park amenities with modern amenities. So a quick example is the surfacing that's used in playgrounds, mulch or bark versus the pour-in-place rubber. It is much more expensive to install the pour-in-place rubber. It's more expensive to maintain. But again, the trade-off is the number of people that are willing to go and activate the park is a trade-off because you're paying less maintenance for the damage that's done when people aren't activating the park as a result of it being fully utilized. So we're going to pay. Are we paying to replace light bulbs and playground equipment, et cetera? Or are we paying to install new amenities that keep people there and busy for a long period of time? Another thing is, drinking fountains, making sure that we have drinking fountains in some of our community and regional parks so that people can stay longer. That's an asset that you wouldn't think it's a new modern amenity, but drinking fountains with water bottle filling stations. Dog bowls attached at the bottom. That's two different groups of people. A water bottle filling station might be somebody that's using the trail, not necessarily staying there the full time, so they're taking water on the run. You're meeting the need of somebody that's a different type of park user. Same thing with the dog bowl. If we have dogs, dog user or dog owners that are there and they can give their dog water, they're more likely to stay longer. So those are just some examples of the modern amenities. Correct. Right. Yeah. Shade. That was a big comment from a lot of the public interactions we had is more shade, more shade, more shade. Trees are fantastic. They're my personal preference, but they do take a long time to grow. And what we've seen is for every 10 trees we plant, 2 or 3 of them get broken or ripped out of the ground before they're mature enough to actually provide shade. So there's a trade-off. We are a tree city. Trees are a vital part of our history and our current kind of park infrastructure. But if we're going to plant new trees, we need to make sure that they are supported to get to full maturity so that they can be utilized for the reason that they're planted. And that goes to the safety in the parks to address that. Developing a comprehensive maintenance management plan, that's very big. Like I said, what do we do on a daily, weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, annual basis to maintain facilities and trails, playgrounds, park infrastructure? Having a plan ensures that with staff turnover, all that knowledge, we had some people, I don't know if you remember Mark Bueno, that was in the park system forever, but there's a lot of folks that were with the city for years and years and years, decades, and they retired, and a lot of that historical knowledge went away. And so having maintenance management plans, whether it's for programs, maintenance, facility management, those things help institutionalize the standards of practice to make sure that we have a certain quality to our facilities and our fields. Establishing similarly a trail maintenance program. That's really important, especially with Bear Creek. We're all probably aware of some of the flood implications that we had as a result of Bear Creek having some infrastructure issues and capacity issues with flooding. It's supposed to be a flood prevention tool, not increase our likelihood for flooding as a community. But with that being said, there are multiple jurisdictions involved in Bear Creek, the management of that amenity. And so we need to put together a trail, a creek, and a park maintenance management plan where everybody's on the same page as far as who's responsible for what. And there's a partnership to ensure that those things are safe as opposed to liability or risks. Commissioner Holloway, it looked like you may have a comment on that one.
I was just thinking back on the shaded part.
Yeah.
Would this category also do shading over the structures?
Yeah, infrastructure. So I would say probably enhancing the existing aging park
Okay.
with modern amenities. That would be something that we would look to do there.
Okay.
So I know some communities, they use actual shade structures. I've seen
Yeah.
Houlihan Park in Planada, if you guys have not been there.
I
the
have a lot
county-
of friends who will drive just to Planada just
Yeah.
to have that shade.
Yeah, and
when it's like they're Merced residents, why are we having them go to a different city?
Right.
And we
Yeah.
have plenty of parks here, but it goes down to
Yeah.
it's too hot for them to play on.
Yep. And then we also hear that the playground's not as much of a concern, but where the parents or grandparents will typically sit around the playground is not shaded. So the playground might have shade structures on it, and then the picnic benches are in full sun and unbearable. So the adults are the ones going, we got to go. So we have to strike that balance between there. And I know there in the two parks we recently under development at the Merced Regional Sports Complex and General Vangpao Park, both playgrounds and the picnic benches around them are either covered with canopies, not fully like Houlihan Park because those are very expensive versions of shade coverings, but the umbrella fabric across different platforms on the playgrounds, and then trees or shade structures covering picnic tables. Great point. Walkable, bike-friendly streets throughout the city for safe and equitable access to parks and facilities. So we heard from a couple of our running enthusiasts, walking enthusiasts, and bike enthusiasts that they have some concern about the walkability of our streets and our trails. There's some areas that are putting them in contention with traffic, and we know that there's some other things that we're going through as a society right now with the high-risk bike maneuvers and things like that, but this was more speaking about needing to upgrade our dedicated trail system so that they were more friendly for bikes, walking, and running. Mr. Carlos? Okay. It could, yeah, delineating, yep.
Is that falling under under parks, or is it also like the city's traffic maintenance and all of that?
I think it's both. The characteristic that we have with our active transportation plan, or active transportation system, is that all of it goes, I shouldn't say all of it, there's a feature in Farrens Creek or Sunset Trail along Farrens Creek and Bellevue Ranch that does go north and south. Every other trail in Merced goes east and west. So arterial roads, M Street, R Street, G Street, those are used as the north-south connection. And so those bike lanes become vital. To Commissioner Holloway's point, there's some overlap with traffic studies, with planning, the general plan. What are our bike lane standards? How wide do those lanes need to be in developments? And there's more than two, but there's at least two schools of thought. Some people think roads need to be really wide so cars have lots of room and they don't run into each other, and they have lanes that are dedicated for bigger vehicles, and that bike lanes need a small dedicated area specifically that cars don't go in, and that's just for bikes. And then there's other comments that we heard where folks were saying the bike lanes need to be just as wide as a vehicle lane, and the vehicle lanes need to be really slim so it encourages people to slow down. So there's multiple planning streams of thought around how to accomplish that. But the goal here is to incorporate designable, walkable and bike-friendly streets throughout the city. So we would work with the active transportation planning that planning's doing and the general plan to make sure that those standards were incorporated.
I guess for me, I just want to make sure that this doesn't end up being put on the parks so much, and like it not getting done. Because I just feel like that's more of a concern, like to make sure sidewalks are good and all of that. I have a problem with it being on here just because I don't want it to fall back on parks.
Got it.
When we don't necessarily, like our budget should be like more to the parks and the city should worry more about walkable and bike-friendly streets. Yes, we want them to get to the parks, but for me, that just looks like a bigger city overall issue. Shouldn't be necessarily on us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you guys can totally disagree with me, but
I agree with that one, actually.
yeah. I'm concerned that like later it's gonna bite us in the butt and be like,
Gotcha.
well, you put that, you were gonna be in charge of that, and it's like, yeah, but our park needed dirt.
Okay.
I think that the funding should primarily be that it does allow the benefit.
Okay. So let's put that, can we get a volunteer maybe to write down, what number is that? Walkable bike path, so it's gonna be 1.5 on needs refinement. Yeah, that's the numerical objective. Yeah.
Yeah, I see how we can be more in charge of like trails, because they're usually like behind the parks
Yeah.
or like that. So I'm not opposed to that one, but it's just the 1.5.
Okay.
Off-road versus on-road.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good delineation. Can we write a clarification? Sorry, I didn't mean for you to. Maybe off-road versus on-road. Is that fair, Commissioner
Yeah,
Holloway?
yeah.
You like that one? I'm more comfortable with that too. I think that's a lot better for us.
I just have been in situations where it's like very general and then it gets like put back and it's like, the less general, the better.
That's what a chance to get in our pocket.
Yeah.
I have
Uh-huh.
a question. Do we also have like a bicycle and pedestrian committee?
We do.
There is, yeah.
We do,
So-
yes.
Is that the coalition or somebody else?
The Bicycle Coalition works with the planning department. Yes, and so the planning department actually supports that the way we support your commission here, and they make recommendations to planning. I think there's been some issues with items not being agendized, so there was some fallout, but I know that there's at least 2 community members from the Bike Coalition that go to the commission as routine advocates to ask staff for updates on things. So yeah, there's a commission and there's a community coalition, and the coalition is very involved in the commission. Yes. 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 Similar in how we have a lot of the youth service organizations that come here that utilize our youth centers. We have a partnership, but they may have a unique perspective that they want you to know outside of our perspective. All right, fantastic. So if you guys are catching on, what we hope to do through this evening is say, which ones are we affirming? Which ones are we refining? And which ones are completely not even on here that you guys want us to add? Okay? Or totally take out. Like, nope, who put that? No way, shape, or form. Okay, so 1.6, incorporate the most needed park amenities into future parks. So That's being done. I'm very proud of the couple of parks that we've been building recently in the city of Merced, Community Park 42 or Merced Regional Sports Complex, as well as General Vang Pao. We've been very intentional with planning those parks. We met with community coalitions that work with kids or have children with specific needs. We've met and received funding through First Five of Merced County through their Safe Play initiative, making sure that their commissioners are in support of what type of amenities we want to include in playgrounds. So some of the things that we've started to standardize are pour and play surfacing, so that's the rubber surfacing that we talked about, shaded playgrounds, drinking fountains, ADA parking, lighting, and native plantings. So Public Works developed a tree list that's been adopted. That tree list basically dictates what types of trees are feasible in the city of Merced. They don't create the root intrusion that we saw from some of our older trees that were planted. And as they matured, we realized, oh, they really like residential water lines. And the roots start intruding resident water lines, and now we have all these, insurance claims for busted pipes and things like that. So we have an adopted tree list that we give developers or that we use when we plan parks. We also want to make sure we try to use as much native landscape as possible. And one of the reasons for that is to ensure that we're as drought tolerant as possible. We don't want water heavy plants in the city of Merced, given our proneability to droughts. Yes.
Possible that we
Yeah. Yeah, I know going back to the delineation of maintenance and recreation, Parks and Community Services doesn't typically oversee that. I know we work with Boy Scout or Girl Scout troops to do that on a regular basis. It's usually a one-off. It's usually one tree that a family wants to donate or a troop wants to donate to the city. We'll facilitate that process with our Public Works colleagues in the Parks Maintenance Division. But they do a fantastic Tree City USA Day. And they usually dedicate or kind of adopt one park each year. And they invite community individuals to come out and help plant multiple trees and plants at that event. I know the past couple years it's been done at, I know McNamara Park. I think they did it last year at Stephen Leonard Park, which is great because we just had the youth center renovated and that should be open pretty soon. I think there's been some activity at Applegate Park as well around the new playground, the newer playground, and off to the east side of the skate park where the Kittyland train goes kind of meandering now. We have some juvenile trees there. So I know that Public Works does that. They do a great job. One of the things that you're going to see in the next pillar is the topic of community connection. We don't do a great job of marketing and advertising our opportunities, and so that became a pillar of need for us, and we'll get into that area next. 1.7, evaluate the feasibility of an indoor multi-generational recreation facility at Merced Regional Sports Complex. Excuse me. For context, this plan has been in development over the past year and a half. If you remember, about 2 years ago, the federal government infused $4 billion of new money to the high-speed rail planning effort. That created a reality check for our department that we have two highly utilized recreation amenities along the rail line on 16th Street that would be in the way of high-speed rail's development of a downtown station. Those two facilities are the Senior Community Center and the McCombs Youth Center. When we were looking at the impacts that high-speed rail would have, collateral damage, for lack of a better term, we realized that we have no plan B. We have no other indoor facility that could be utilized to relocate services or continue to serve our community, whether it's us or another organization. And so we know that we have plenty of space at Merced Regional Sports Complex. We know that it's all natural grass. We didn't do artificial turf there, which means it's seasonal. We also know we have an objective to make sure that that regional sports complex generates enough revenue to cover its cost, and that indoor facilities offer opportunities in the winter and the dead of summer that outdoor facilities just don't. They don't have the same utility. So we want to evaluate the feasibility of an indoor multi-generational facility where the city and our partners can continue to serve should high-speed rail develop and end up acquiring some of our current park assets. And that we at least have an ability to continue expanding revenue-generating mechanisms out at the regional sports complex. That is a big, big lift that starts with what will it take to actually make that feasible so that it's cost neutral. That's something that we have not done yet and would take a very specific planning initiative with some outside consultants that come in and do pro formas for indoor facilities and things like that. So that is something that we have on here. But if you, well, we'll go over one of the things that we did is we put in resource allocation to the right of this sheet, and the priority for that is pretty low right now. We know that there is an interest, but it's going to take a lot of financial investment, and we just don't have that at our fingertips right now. So we have prioritization, financial resource requirement, and staff resource requirement. So if all of those are, if financial resource and staff resource are high, it's probably ending up as a low priority for us because it's just not feasible right now. The next one is back to the sports complex, position it as a revenue generating regional asset. So we're off track opening the regional sports complex. We were hoping to open this fall. We had some recent developments with the construction taking place on site that rendered the site to need to be under construction for a couple more months. And so we're planning to open in the spring of 2027. That gives us some time to make sure that we have tournaments booked when we open, we have leagues booked when we open, so we have some capabilities as a result of that delay that we didn't have with the rush to get it open this fall, but we really need to make sure that that is a commitment in this plan. If you don't have that commitment, what happens is there will be pressures because it's a gem, right? It's like if Disneyland decided they didn't want to make money, can you imagine the level of amenity that you would expect when you went in there? It would be a totally different expectation. Did I just lose? Okay, can you check with, okay, it's coming back. So I might just have to move it a little bit once in a while so it doesn't go to sleep. So long story short, we need to make sure that we can keep it at a certain level of fit and finish, which justifies the rates that are required to host a tournament, play and club play and things like that. There's going to be community pressure to make it open and free to use all the time and things like that, but it doesn't cover the cost of maintaining a facility at that level. So we need to program in our own programs, which are low or no cost to participate, so the community has access that way. Also community days on the green, so like Friday nights are free. You know, everybody can come out to the sports complex on Fridays. We have no programming, we have no tournaments. And also make sure that we are partnering with our other local sports organizations to make sure that kids and communities are able to utilize that asset. So there's a delicate balance. We don't want it to be a privatized park. We still want it to be a community accessible feature, but we want to make sure that we're actually using the fields to generate revenue to cover the expense of their maintenance.
I think we really need to advertise outside of Merced.
Yeah.
More people in, make this regional.
Yep.
We got more motel space in the area there, put everything all at the same time.
Yeah.
Showing
Yeah.
out of town folks, they're not squawking locally about how to get down.
Right.
Like the project. Local discount.
Yeah, and that's a great point, actually. So when we talk about community connection next, those are some things that maybe we look at new consideration. I know that other communities that have regional sports complexes, our neighbors up north, Turlock, they actually have an annual tournament director meeting at a local hotel. Their recreation staff facilitate that, and they put the whole schedule together over 2 days. And the tournament directors for the state come and they book everything. And then the hotels are there to understand what impact that's going to have on their hotel bookings so that they know how to schedule rates. They know when they can commit other rooms to other venues. We have the giant Tahiti Fete here. That's a huge influx of people, right? We have band reviews here. We have parades going on. So we want to make sure that the hotels, that people are able to stay here. To Commissioner John's point, we want those partnerships, and we don't want to compete with other folks that are hosting regional events, but we would definitely want ours on the books. So that might be something in community connection that we review next, that we prioritize adding is the marketing of the sports complex.
Sorry, I know we talked about having locations for people to rent out and have events at. We have the senior center and the Boys and Girls Club sort of right now. We talked about adding more and having a place for that. I was thinking that feasible indoor multiple generation recreation facility was going to be one, but would that be used for those, or that's only
could-
sports wise?
It could be. I know that we've also had some comments from other community partners that have said, hey, if we're going to go big or go home, and think about something that the UC could host events at.
Yeah.
Right off the freeway. Larger venues. So that could be something of that nature. I think what we were envisioning was more something that people that would utilize the sports complex throughout the year would be able to utilize the indoor facility in the winter. But that doesn't mean that it can't be
It's not limited.
flexible,
Yeah.
right? So one of the things that we talked about was flex space a lot. The ability to use an outfield of a softball field for a flag football field or a soccer field, right? Indoor spaces can offer that same thing, where you have an arena type facility where bleachers go away and you can host concerts, or you can rent. I think the difference is what volume of people are we hosting there. That kind of is the common denominator, no matter what the facility is being used for, that we need to stay consistent with, so that we don't build an arena and then try to market it for birthday party rentals.
Yeah.
But I will say that we have taken that thought into consideration, and we've diversified and reorganize some of our facilities that we have right now. So the Rosati Education Center at Merced Applegate Zoo is now completely just a rentable space for zoo-themed birthday parties or gatherings, et cetera. So if you wanted to have
A zoo-themed wedding.
that's right, that's right, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like hearing the community, it's always like, where can I rent a space? And we did have a whole meeting on that before. So I guess I just wanted to see a little bit more of that in this recommendation.
Okay.
Mostly if it's going to be like, what did we say, like 10 years?
Yeah, 10-year plan.
Essentially, like, I think Merced would benefit to having something like that. So even if the priority is low, I think I would just like to see that somewhere where we are going to have infrastructures that people can rent out.
Okay.
We have a lot of quinceañeras out here.
We do.
And just like, I think it would bring in a lot of it'd bring in a lot of money. And so, I know it would take a lot of money if we're building it. But I think we would make our money back pretty quickly.
Did
Just
you
a
have a-
quick thought, I
Real
don't
quick,
think she
if I
was there.
could, just
Sorry.
point of order, can we make sure we're using our microphone? So I noticed, Ms. Holloway, if you could just push the mute button, and that'll turn it on.
I think I just gotta go like this.
There you go. I know, these are very intimate microphones. Sorry.
I know we discussed at the last meeting, was it that the Alpharetta Park were possibly moving the Boys and Girls Club? There would be a
Yes.
new building. Is that something that would be like how she said, where it could be rented out or only for that space?
It depends. So one of the chapters of the pros plan talks about park types. Alpharetta Park is a neighborhood park where we're looking at putting a community level asset in the Boys and Girls Club if they were to build a building. And so what we don't want to do is inundate a neighborhood that doesn't have the space for like parking and the influx of traffic. Those are typically affiliated more with like what Ms. Holloway suggested, a regional sports complex, Applegate Park, Farrens Park, really underdeveloped area, which is one of our capital improvement project areas. But the thing that comes to mind for me is Applegate Park as a regional park, the outdoor moat area, looking at renovating that into potentially an indoor-outdoor, venue. We have the Scout Hut nearby. We used to have restrooms in that area. Those were torn down. They just got really outdated and vandalized. So there's some potential to do something in that level of space. The other thing that I would say is there's also opportunities through new community developments that are taking place. So just for example, don't hold me to this, don't go to a VST meeting and say that I suggested this, but the Virginia Smith Trust is a huge community development plan. There's regional park space, there's connected trails, there's mini parks, linear parks. Those community development plans could include some type of community level feature like that. And this plan, again, the benefit of doing this now is that we have the opportunity to make suggestions that go into the general plan. And when that general plan is adopted, that becomes the footprint for how we expect developers to interact with the city moving forward. So we can put those standards out there, and it doesn't mean that it will always be the burden of the city to build them. We can look at public-private partnerships to carry those, address those areas of need.
Or possibly, since UC Chancellor is so supportive, drop a hint, hey, maybe you guys can generate some revenue on this at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Public-public partnerships. Partnerships are key. So I don't want to monopolize the conversation. It sounds like Commissioner Holloway had a suggestion. Do you guys want to deliberate and decide, is that something we want to put up for new consideration?
I think so. I think it would fall, in my opinion, under 1.9 and expanding a little bit of the scope specifically to add language discussing implementation plans that utilize or that create space for the public to rent, to utilize for their own events, and then possibly also to generate revenue for them that we can also use as revenue generators for the park system.
So if we added to that 1.9, including new rentable facilities?
Yeah.
I think Commissioner Holloway is planning a quinceañera already.
You have 5 years.
I know, she said, this is 5 to 10 years, right?
5 years. My daughter is 15.
You'll be the first one.
All right,
Yes.
fantastic.
And I get a
So let's
discount
go
for
ahead and
being
put
an
it into consideration. That's right.
Parks and Rec Commissioner discount.
I get the stamp of approval discount. Can we, yeah, that's fine. Needs refinement, totally fine.
Add facility rentals.
We want to include new rental facilities. Great work. All right. The next section is community connection. And let me go back to our presentation here real quick. This pillar recognizes that Parks and Community Services cannot and should not attempt to meet all these needs alone. We have a role as both a service provider, a convener, and a community partner. So Pillar 2 is about better communication, focused programming, and intentional partnerships that extend our reach to the community. We want to make sure that we stay informed by our residents. So we talked about the communication issue, right? Hearing what programs we should be offering or services, strengthening our relationships with our community, and focus limited capacity where it creates the most value. Intended outcomes of this area are having an engaged community that feels a sense of ownership. One of the things that gets really frustrating is when you feel there's nothing you can do. You know, oh, I signed up for the commission and that Director Jensen, he just never took a motion seriously. We never got that plan implemented. You know, people want to feel like they're a part of something, even if it means getting discounts later. No, I'm just kidding. But those opportunities to be part of the decision-making process, part of the partnerships, part of the tree planting, creates a sense of ownership to where when we see someone defacing property, we feel compelled to speak up about it. We feel compelled to encourage our partners to sign up for the services that Recreation's offering because we had a good experience, or we volunteered to coach, or we were part of the planning that made that possible. So that leads to increased participation, and it also leads to strategic and effective partnerships. So just a couple of high-level objectives out of this area: enhancing internal and external communication about services, evaluating existing partner agreements, strengthening coordinated rec program planning and with community organizations, and developing standards of practice for our own recreation programs. So what does that look like on our sheet in detail? 2.1, enhance internal and external communication about department activities, events, and services. Right now, just out of curiosity, as commissioners, how do you stay informed of what's going on in Merced Parks and Recreation?
I see on Facebook, Instagram, the page, more stories. I had an idea, though, while we're on this subject. I thought maybe if we added signs at each park with maybe a QR code that's specific to that park, inviting people to provide feedback of like something as simple of what would you like to see, or how are you enjoying our parks, or something like you see something, say something type thing. Because I don't think that all the people that normally frequent the parks are able to come to a meeting like this and publicly speak. So maybe if they're already there and everybody's on their phones anyway, that could be a way that they give information, and but maybe we can also have a way that they find out information as well. Like maybe it will have like a little link that takes them to the page, so
That's
they can
a
put a
great
little
idea.
survey, fill that out, and it will be specific to that park, so we'll know which park they were at, and it won't be that costly because it'll just be a sign with a QR code, maybe like a metal one that, you know, that they use at like national parks or something.
Does the Merced Connect app already offer something like that, or no?
No.
Okay, I know you can complain
we-
about trees and all.
We do on the reporting mechanism. So what Merced Connect does, and I think it's a fantastic amenity or tool for the community to report work that's required. But that's a little bit more of like the public works, like repair angle. I think from what I'm hearing is more like the perception, the feeling, you know, hey, we really like this, we would like to see this, and maybe it includes, this was broken when I went, but more about, you know, the community feedback. And then if somebody gets somewhere, I know we have a lot of people that will come to the zoo, They have no idea that we have Laura Fountain on the other side of Applegate Park. They have no idea that the Scout Hut is a reservable amenity right on the other side of the park. We have people that rent the Scout Hut for children's birthday parties that have no idea that we have a zoo on the other side of the park, or Kittyland. So I think what I'm hearing is more like a QR code that almost gives you a destination map.
Yeah.
And I love that idea with trails too. So trailheads, like if you hit a trail somewhere, every, I don't know, quarter mile, there's a QR code. You scan it, it tells you where the nearest restroom is at the next park, or it tells you where it connects to the next trail,
Right.
depending on how far you want to go that day for that trek or outing.
And maybe invites them to also follow the pages that
Yeah.
they're not on yet, so they
Yeah.
can know what community things are going on in the area. So I don't know if it would just be a sign, or if later, if we could afford to have like a little boxed, like thin glass thing with flyers that we put in there or something. I mean,
What I'm thinking is right now, we have park signs, we have playground signs, especially if the playground's been dedicated to someone or
Right.
named for someone. We could just do a simple QR, like graffiti coding
Okay.
with a QR code embedded in it, so that it's almost like a film, like you put on a screen protector that has the QR code, and then the QR code would take you to like our WebTrack site or our RecTrack site, where people could follow for more information
Yeah.
or specific landing pages that talk about that trail. I also like that idea to talk about the amenities, like you mentioned, like what amenities does this, some people may not know that when you go to Rahiley and you see the shade structure right there, that there's a great 5K loop. If you go 2 times
Yeah.
around the park, the bike trail, it's 5K.
That's cool.
You know, and people may not know where the trail even goes, that you can hit 2 other playgrounds if you go to Cherokee. So, yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea.
having it like go two ways, right? Be informational, but then maybe have like a frequently asked question thing.
Yeah.
So how to rent
Yeah.
these amenities or anything like that.
Absolutely.
And then to provide feedback.
Yep. Great feedback. Yeah, right.
Is there an email, like weekly newsletter that we currently have? Because I remember I took a hiatus from social media. It didn't last too long, but I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on at the parks because I wasn't on Facebook or Instagrams. And I think I've talked to a couple more people who are trying to get off social media as often, but then are we losing a good amount of people because they're not on there and have no other way of finding out what's going on?
So many like
That's a really good
multiple
point.
streams of
Yeah.
information, places they can
And again,
find it.
you would sign up for it, so if you want it, you want it. We're not just randomly
Yes.
sending it to people, and then they can obviously unsubscribe at any time, but I know it'd be adding to somebody's job already, but I think it would be nice to have a little newsletter. I mean, I asked for one and the commissioner started getting one, but
Yep.
obviously if you're not a commissioner, you're not getting it, so.
True, yep. I know another thing that the city as a whole started investing in marketing. And one of the things that the marketing initiative is doing is creating standards of how we put information out. And it's kind of more marketing specific than what we're talking about now, but I think that it speaks to your point. You know, if one of the things that we don't pay attention to is how recognizable are our posts. Because opposite of what you're talking about, what we're struggling with as well as people not being on social media is people being oversaturated with information on social media. And if you don't have brand recognition, like your colors are always changing and the way you post things is always changing, people are literally just bypassing you and going to what they recognize, and that's where they stop. So creating some branding for us, and I'll give you an example of how effective that's been. Our zoo, our new logo with the bear, and then we put it on the donor wall, we put it on the outside. It's our staff are using it on all of their signature lines now. You know, exactly when you're getting information or coming across information online about the zoo, because there's some standards that they're implementing. And I think that we could do that as well, whether it's the volume or the cadence of information we're putting out. Like every Thursday, we used to do a Fun Fact Friday when I first started, and we were doing that from the administrative side of the office, and we would just put out a random historical fact about city parks. And people like Mr. Carlos would get on and go, "You're actually wrong. And in 78, this is when that happened," you know. But no, it was great because people would, you know, we get a lot of new transplants, and they're like, "Oh, I had no idea that McNamara Pool was actually Memorial Plunge Pool is the official name, or that Stephen Leonard was a person that was a park commissioner. And now we have a building named after him and a park named it." So those were pretty cool interactive pieces. And then piggybacking on the thought of the initiative the city's been taking, which I think they're doing a good job getting information out there, is having community conversations. So like coffee with a cop, or park play with the director, and I go to a local park playground and I invite folks to come and just talk to me as a parent about what you'd like to see in that park, or in our recreation programs or things like that. So I think there's some other ways, to your point, that we can diversify our mode of communication, so it's not just all tech-based.
Yeah.
And also, we had a really good lunch today with our Senior Inc. board president, and he said, you know, don't forget the seniors, hottest day at the senior center is Friday afternoon bingo. There's 200 people in there playing the most competitive games of bingo you've ever been a part of. So if we want to get some information out or some feedback about something, that's a great format to go engage our senior population, who's even less likely to be on social media, right now at this point in time. So great feedback. Yeah,
Can I backtrack a second?
please.
On section 1, we forgot something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In. Whoa.
To add my request.
Oh, that's right.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
That's right. So new consideration. Well, please, I don't want to steal your
Yeah, I
thunder.
want to request that if we can look at adding a dog park and the Mission side of town, that new area, just so we'd have to travel all the way across to the north side of town, and that would probably, for a lot of our community members there, be great.
Awesome.
A good way to engage.
I think it's under 1.6, additional dog park.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure when to say.
Yep.
Yeah, it's 10-year plan, we'll need more than one.
Yeah, include dog park in community, in future park, and I would say probably north or south of 99.
Yeah.
I know, I'm like, a teacher.
Good catch, John. Thank you.
The north of 99?
South.
South of 99?
Great. Okay, 2.2, consider public-private partnerships to assist in the identification of new indoor rec facility opportunities, relocations, and parkland acquisition opportunities. So that kind of theme is woven throughout our parks plan in different areas, but what we're talking about there is another area that we need to start communicating with our community partners, like, hey, if we want to put an indoor facility at the regional sports complex, or if we want to put a youth center in Alpharetta Park, like, what partners are willing to come to the table and make that happen? it's going to take some communication and active solicitation to make those things come to fruition. It's very rare that somebody just walks into my office, at least, and offers us a couple $1 million to do some new park project, right? So it's going to take us communicating these initiatives strategically, looking for private dollars, public dollars, philanthropic dollars, people that are interested in some of these high-level capital improvement projects that we're trying to do with facilities to make it a reality. 2.3, evaluating existing partner agreements. So there's several, but just to give you the quick run through, we have agreements with service providers. So our youth centers, our senior center, they are programmed by outside organizations. We have a pretty healthy agreement right now with our youth center providers. What we have started to do, though, which will be essential that we keep our finger on the pulse here, we've moved from service agreements to lease agreements. What that does is, for the city, is it gives the user of the facility more stake in the repair, the routine maintenance of the facility. It does require that they have more financial investment in the facility maintenance, and it takes that requirement off of the city. So the trade, instead of it being an in-kind agreement, which is what we have with service agreements now, is in lieu of facility maintenance costs or rent, you provide services as an extension of Parks and Community Services to our community. Financially, that's feasible at this point in time. There may come a time soon, if things don't change financially for the city, where we have to reconsider those commitments and look at something like we went into with the community college earlier this year and the Boys and Girls Club of Merced County last year, where they don't pay rent, but they cover all maintenance costs. So that's what we're talking about there. The other big one I would say is our user agreements with our school districts. There was a point in time where schools were considered open space after hours. They were neighborhood playgrounds for most of us growing up. That's not the case right now in our community. Most schools are closed after hours. There's safety concerns, there's vandalism prevention, there's a lot of rationale behind that. But what that's done is it's taken our ability to rely on those assets away as a routine programmable space for recreation. And so we have to really kind of peel back our commitments and look at what our own facility needs are, so we can address some of the things that Mr. Eber was speaking about earlier during public comment and not be spread so thin. Just as an example, prior to this year, we were doing 14 fields every single week in the spring across the city. 90% of those were at schools, prepping fields. That's dragging the fields, chalking the fields, conditioning the fields, wetting the fields down. Then the school teams go and play on them, and then our youth service orgs go on after hours, and the fields are already used. And we were just getting complaints all the time. So we started peeling back our commitments, looking at our level of service and saying, hey, we have sports complexes that our sports orgs could use, and we have to maintain those anyway for evening use by our adult programs or other youth sports orgs. Why don't we just move them into those areas? And we did that last year with youth softball, who gave us a outstanding review at the same complex in Joe Herb. So we are working to make the conditions better. It is a work in progress, but alleviating or modifying our external commitments and kind of staying in our lane and refocusing our intentions on our own facilities, I think is a better way than overextending our reach and then our service is just so watered down we're not impactful.
I think that's a good point. I think it speaks to what April was talking about earlier. If we use up all of our funding towards something, then it leaves us dry later.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll continue to evaluate those partnerships. Explore public-private partnerships to advance indoor recreation facility. Did I read that already? Or is that, I'm sorry. Strengthen and clarify long-term operational model for youth center facilities to ensure consistent, high-quality service delivery. So this has been a work in progress as well. Commissioner Holloway's the most experienced commissioner on the commission at this point. And I think you probably recall when I first came to the city, there wasn't a whole lot of feedback that was being provided by what was going, there was a lot of questions from commission, what's going on in our facilities? We don't know what's happening in these youth centers. Not that there wasn't things going on, but there wasn't a method of communication. And so one of the things that we did was created a standardized template report that the youth centers can use to fill in the blanks, so everybody gets the same data that they're required to supply. You as commissioners review it on a quarterly basis. We hope that the presenters show up and they give some feedback. You can ask them questions. One thing that I will admit, we negated to do this last year. We've had some staffing turnover that's required more of my time on the programming side, but that was really well received by Commissioner Holloway and her colleagues was we did an annual tour a couple of times, and that the commissioners really liked that, in addition to the quarterly report. So what we want to do now is kind of a 2.0. Just like we have a strategic plan that tells you and our community the things that we intend to do, and we have measurable outcomes, right? They either happened or they didn't, who was responsible, what funding was required and not. We want to start moving towards measurable outcomes for our service providers now that we've gotten probably a 4-year track record, wouldn't you say, of routine quarterly reports. Now we want to know being active is great, but what's the outcome of the activities you're doing? So we've been very quantitative. What numbers are you seeing in the youth center? How many hours are you open? How many days a week? Now we want to look at impact. What are your services actually creating or generating in the lives of the young or elders that you're serving? So that's that, Mark. Any pushback on that? Are you guys okay with us moving forward on expectations there? Okay. Strengthen, let's see, we did that one. 2.6, strengthen relationships, partnerships, coordinated recreation service planning with community-based organizations. So we have several CBOs or nonprofits that historically we've partnered with. And there was a time in the city's, in the recreation department's past where there was so much, there was so limited capacity by the department to actually manage, not necessarily operate, but just manage facilities, that we kind of took a hands-off approach. Hey, Marissa's got that venue. Unless we hear complaints, you know, from someone else, Marissa's rocking and rolling. If you got questions about said park or said field, contact Marissa. There was a time and a place for that. I think it got overutilized, that sense of ownership by some of our community-based organizations. That led to some entitlement issues, which led to some equitable issues. We had community members that were saying, I can never access that feature because John is the only one that has keys, and he kicks me out when I try to get in there. That's not what we build community assets for, right? There are definitely some features, like we talked about the regional sports complex, that has to be a revenue generating asset. We don't have another one of those in our community right now that we use for sports. And so we need to make sure that we take more ownership of those facilities, which requires more intentional staffing and relationship development so that we have a healthy relationship with our CBOs and not one that is totally reliant on them taking care of facilities on our behalf that then turns into a lot of sense of ownership and entitlement that creates other unintended consequences. So we want to revisit those partnerships, maintain that level of stewardship and sense of pride without it evolving into a sense of ownership of those facilities. So what that looks like, just like Chris, that sounds great on a microphone. What does that actually mean? It means we will have contracts in place with organizations that say, here's when you get a facility, here's how much it requires you to pay to cover your private use, and outside of that, you're not to be at the facility. So it's terms and conditions of private use for community-based organizations to utilize recreation amenities instead of just, well, as long as Marcus turns the lights off by a said time, he's got the keys. Like, we have to have a deeper sense of commitment ourselves as a department to manage our facilities.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who would fall under this specific section here, but as far as like fostering relationships, I know I've seen a lot of like run clubs starting up in town where they are using the trails. Like, how can we create those relationships where we can partner up with them, where, I don't know if it's, we can do donations, I don't know, to go towards these things, or, you know, stuff like that, that bring the community in and, you know, just add more to that, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a great point. I think running right now it's hitting a peak. There's a lot of runners. I know it's hard to tell. I am not one. But what I will say is that's actually what started our Gateway to Yosemite run, was this thought of like, how do we help like get people into running? And so the way that kind of we marketed it was me being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm going to do a personal couch to 5K campaign. How do I get from my couch potato self to a condition where I can run a 5K? And I just did a personal journey on Instagram, and then we made fun of it and kind of did like me stretching to the Rocky music last year, and really promoted folks that typically wouldn't even think about running to think of it as a way to engage with each other as a community member. Yeah, that's right. So I definitely hear you. I think that there's an opportunity, and we did reach out to several of the running clubs. I got to tell you, it's so popular right now. Most of them are already doing like runs right around the corner. But we have a colleague in the city that's involved with the running clubs, and so her and I have had a conversation about how do we help promote what they're doing or get involved in a way that, you know, I think the thing about any sport, right, is if you've never done it, it can be very intimidating, no matter what it is. If it's running, lifting weights, throwing a ball, I think it's that icebreaker that we would be really good advocates to create those entry-level opportunities that then those more enthusiastic clubs are a part of, and people that get the bug can roll into the more routine, you know, experiences. So I'm there with you. I think running is hitting a stride right now, and we'll continue to kind of embrace that through the Gateway to Yosemite run, and then look at ways that we can kind of push out those other opportunities that, from what I know, they're all free. It's almost like pop-ups, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, we're meeting downtown.
I think they do like sometimes certain maybe like events where it is like a fee for a coffee or
Okay.
Pilates after, something like that. Or I was even thinking, I know they have like the K-9 runs
Yes.
coming up, like the police department, sheriff's department.
Yep.
Like, how can we make relationships for the community? Because at the end of the day, they're also part of our community.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe we
Merced
can do
College.
like a community shout out day every week at this location. They're going to be doing this.
So I did see that, actually, going back to the marketing thing, they partnered up with local businesses like that to do
Yeah.
on Instagram, like certain spotlights, I think.
I would say mostly if they are like using our facilities, but not necessarily us doing it, if we just
Right.
give them a shout out, just, and like making it easy for them to like submit a form to get a shout out with a quick turnaround, would be nice to have, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yep.
just advertising for them, and obviously advertising a little bit for us too in there.
I think there's another run, I think that Merced College does, called Run for the Fallen, and it's
Yeah.
like a
I don't
free
know anything
event,
about any
too.
runs.
Like, even just if you have your marketing team out there
Yeah.
talking about, we're out here today, and just
Yep.
promoting Merced as a,
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that we could leverage some of those activities to get our information out there and to push those others' information. The initial step that we took is in line with what Commissioner Holloway suggested, and if we have somebody that's renting one of our facilities, that the either activity or the event is open to the public to register or to show up, we've began pushing that. So a couple of examples that come to mind is like the Rec League for Merced United, or Merced Youth Soccer Association, the Rec League for Albion Junior, the Rec League for Merced Youth Softball, Merced Youth Baseball, and then also the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Mercado. We started pushing that information and sharing their information, and then also the supermarket that's using Bob Hart Square. And those events have been fantastic. I mean, I look at our shares and our likes and things on stuff, and we have like 20. And then you go to their homepage, and it's like a bazillion. But we might be getting people to look at ours that aren't even affiliated with those groups. So I'm all about that. As long as it's nothing that's private, and it's open to the community to participate, and they're using our facilities, we've been pushing that information out. So I love that idea.
Maybe with the popularity of these runs, maybe we can encourage the organizers to reach out to nonprofit groups or youth groups to sponsor a water station every so far during the run. And let them
good
give out,
idea.
whatever propaganda they have for that event.
I think there's people out there willing to help, but don't know how or who to connect with. So I just think if we make it as easy as possible, like
Yeah.
with the QR codes, that's a great idea. Just this is who you communicate, and then we have to just make sure that whoever's in charge of it is communicating back.
Yes.
Because then we don't want to offer it and then be like, I sent a thing 3 weeks ago and haven't
Yeah.
heard back.
Yep.
somebody on the other side
Yeah.
responding to like something. I think all of it is good, because like even what she was saying about the partnerships, well, once you're partnering with other people, now it's word of mouth. Now if you have the MHC or Merced Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, now you have their team members talking about,
Yeah.
how someone's doing something. So it's just like networking too.
Absolutely. Okay, next section, we have, is there anything that we want refined or new consideration after that discussion? Are you guys okay with kind of the trajectory we're taking to continue to push and promote external stuff? As long as they're using our venues, it starts getting into the weeds if it's just like a downtown run, but I'll tell you, if we knew like, hey, the meetup spot was Bob Hart Square, we'd be all over it, right? Because it's one of our amenities. But it starts getting difficult to keep track of everything. But if they're using a park or community service asset, we would definitely promote.
Should I write the QR code specific up there, or do you think it just falls in there and it's already covered?
I think it's fair to put it.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I had it on here too.
You could say, let's see, including,
QR code for two-way communication?
yeah, and maybe even broader than QR code, because that's more of a specific activity.
Okay.
Maybe in parentheses, we could say, yeah, we could say incorporated in signage, park signage, such as QR codes. And all of these are kind of at the action level. So activity level is more like, okay, we have to, it's more tasks, right? Like we're gonna create QR codes to go on these specific signs. What we're talking about, which is fine to get specific notes on that, but we want to try to stay at the action level, which is broader than that and focused on enhancing the internal and external communication. So I think some of the tasks or actions that we brought up were community shout outs, the QR codes on park signage, trailhead signage where folks know how long this trail is and what features they can expect along the way.
You want maps and trailheads?
Oh, no. I was just saying, we got some notes, offline notes, and as we start implementing these things, we'll get like task force with you guys and start actually creating specific actions.
I'm gonna use the restroom.
Yeah. The next, next bullet point, this is a really big one for us. This is internal. This came up. Development standard operating procedures for recreation operations. We talked about that kind of tribal knowledge leaving with employees, past practices that may not align with current requirements or standards of practice in our recreation system. So we've been doing that as a staff internally for 2 weeks now, looking at our standards of practice from hiring practices, training practices, onboarding, organizational structure of communication, chain of command. We're visiting quite a few standards of practice, and our hope is by the end of this year, this fiscal year, that we're going to have a standard of practice operating procedures for our department. So whenever somebody new comes on, they understand what our policies are, what our procedures are, what their expectations are. And obviously, when you start a new job, it's kind of like drinking through a fire hose. You know, it takes you a while before you get everything down pat. But it creates some protections for us to make sure we're not putting a brand new staff behind the wheel of a tractor on a ball field that's going to destroy a bunch of fencing, you know, or, injure themselves or someone else. So we're just going to put some safeguards in place so we have some expectations for staff all across our system. And we're all, no matter what division we're in, if it's at the zoo or if it's ball field preparation, we all have the same standards of practice that we're following so that there's some congruence.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
I'm not sure if it would fall under this one or if we would need a complete new bullet point because I don't see something on this for here. I would bring up possibility of including standardization of renting and utilization of the different, venues, the different amenities that we have. I ran an event last year, or earlier this year, it's been a long year. And it was definitely a labyrinth to get the right things approved. And so if there is any way that we could simplify that, I know it would be an interdepartmental effort, but making much more of a one-stop shop for the public of if they want Bob Hart Square, they go to the department Bob Hart Square is under, which is Parks and Rec. If they want a park, they go to the park system. Everything is laid out there, because as it currently stands, it is a lot of telephone.
Absolutely. And I don't want to jump the gun, but if you look at Resource and Stewardship 4.10.
Okay, perfect.
Interdepartmental collaboration to improve operational efficiency and enhance service quality for residents.
I will bring it back
That's
up
exactly what you're speaking to. And that's the intention there, is to make sure that if you host a parade and you want to use Bob Hart Square as your staging, we don't put that burden on you. I use the analogy or the comparison that if I can have insomnia and be up at 1 in the morning and book a 5-day trip to Beijing and back there in 10 minutes on my cell phone, there's no reason it should take you, the resident of Merced, 4 days to book a quinceañera at Merced Senior Center.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not efficient. I will say, shameless plug to my amazing staff, Harveen. She's taken great strides to streamline our process. With that specific example, now you come to one location, you pay one fee, it covers everything that you need, and we make sure that what we're developing next is a reservation packet, so you know exactly what you need to include with your application. So it's not first you turn in your application, then we tell you the insurance requirement, then we tell you need a site plan, then we tell you got to walk it with the fire marshal to make sure your tents are this, that, and the other. It's a one-stop shop experience. So we're not there quite yet. We made big strides through Harveen and some of her colleagues in the administrative side, shoring up that process for our users. And we also worked with council to better define the rental area of downtown in Bob Hart Square, including the addition of Canal as part of that rental. So now, as it stands, you come to Parks and Community Services if you want Bob Hart Square Plaza, which is the kind of the foundation rental space. If your event requires more space, you stay with us to use the common area, which is the old traditional Bob Hart Square area. And if you want even further, we can have up to 2 additional blocks of space all the way to 19th Street. That application still stays with us. You don't go to another department now that you're on a street. What that required was us working with council to delineate and define an extension of Bob Hart Square versus a street closure. So we're utilizing Canal as more of an overflow space after hours, instead of it being this parade-style street closure application where every department has to review it. You get 18 emails from 18 different representatives of the city, and you're answering the same question over and over, and sometimes unique ones. So as I said, totally valid concern. Definitely one of our priorities under the resource stewardship pillar, and we've made great headway on that specific experience because it wasn't unique to you. There was a lot, but that's a fantastic example. It was crazy making what was going on. So we will continue to refine that process and make it much more user-friendly.
Okay, perfect.
2.8, strengthen coordination with Merced County to address impacts related to unhoused individuals and behavioral health transitions within the city. So I want to be really clear. I definitely appreciate our council. Ms. Holloway, you said you had some concerns about us even leaving language in about on-road, right? That is outside of our wheelhouse. There was some similar concerns brought up by our city council about language suggesting that we work to address unhoused populations. From my perspective, from the staff perspective, I consider our parks and our recreation facilities our home, and that we're in charge of stewarding on behalf of you, the community. And if somebody was to use a home otherwise than intended, it becomes the responsibility of the property manager to make sure that that issue is addressed. Whether or not I have the resources to address it, that's a separate issue. But making sure that whoever's in my position understands the call to action is to make sure that those spaces are used for the intended reasons. They're not for housing. They're not for business. They're not for industrial parks to go. Parks are not housing. They're for leisure, they're for active recreation. And what we heard over and over again is that residents are tired of feeling unsafe and insecure by visiting our parks and having to be exposed to some of the untreated mental illness that is residing in our parks. And so this is a call to action to make sure that we are actively engaging our police force and our behavioral health county partners to treat the issues that we hear about creating negative impacts for our park users. I hope that was pretty clear. We are not trying to create social workforce. We're not thinking we're behavioral health specialists or peer supports. There's some language in the planning documents that talk about, us needing to be aware of like public health issues and things like that, which I think it's fair enough to say we do. Like if we know that there's high propensities of preventable disease and our spaces aren't being used, they activate people and can help prevent disease, that's an issue, right? We have tools that people could use. We need to find out why they're not using them. What we heard in our analysis was the tools are the playgrounds in our parks, and the communities aren't using them because there's people living in them instead of using them as intended. And so we have to be involved in the solution. Part of that involvement is just having a presence, making sure they're active, and being able to report, making those connections, whether it's to our own DART team, if there's a full-on encampment, or our police, if it's an emergency issue, or if it's non-emergency, but we just notice, hey, every Wednesday, Chris is here running people off, at said park, and maybe that's a good opportunity to contact our behavioral health partners and say, hey, Chris is at this park again. Every Wednesday, it's pretty predictable. We're getting a lot of complaints from the community about him. Can you reach out and see if he needs services? We are not doing the work to get the service, to institute the services, but we're doing the footwork to connect the services to the person. What does that look like? If you look at, oh, darn it, it's the one that didn't print out on our plotter. But we do have an infographic. Let me see if I can see it really quickly. Yes. Is it connected community? No. Okay. So this is on safety and inclusion, which is what we're talking about now, but using McNamara Park as an example. This is the current layout of McNamara Park. Thank you, AI, for helping kind of generate this. But we have a police department on site. We have a playground right there. We have a pool. We have soccer fields. And you know why we hear most people don't use the playground? Because the inundation of people walking around mentally unfit to be in public. So it's incumbent on us. What are we talking about? Being police officers? No. Are we talking about being social workers? No. What we're talking about is partnering with those resources to make sure that they have a presence there so that our community feels safe to use the playground. I know that there's probably going to be a request to clean up some language, which I'm totally fine with. I think this bullet point version of what we're talking about is more explicitly clear that we're making sure that we're partners and we're engaged in the solution to getting people to not be impacting the parks the way they are. And that doesn't mean we're taking additional roles on of other sectors of our service provisions, but it does mean that we're an active partner in that effort. Any questions? Oh, another example of what that might look like, park ranger program. And we're not talking about state park ranger where we have a docent that's kind of leading trail walks and things, but we're talking about a recreation staff with a safety vest on that says park ranger, that has a presence full-time at our park, that can communicate with PD on the, at the dial of a walkie-talkie or a phone, or PD community resource officers that have a presence there. Bike patrols on our trails that have had a huge impact this summer with our PD has been fantastic by retooling their school resource officers and putting them on a trail patrol on bikes, and our trails have been a lot cleaner and had less of the issues we're talking about here. So I just want to be clear, that's what we're talking about, not kind of restructuring our workforce to be anything other than park and recreation staff, but as park and recreation staff, we have a requirement and a responsibility to make sure that our parks and our recreation facilities are able to be used by everyone, not just folks that may need them more so than others at any given time.
When you think of park ranger, are you thinking of assigning an individual to each park or having maybe a few people that kind of do drives and check the parks?
I think it depends on our level of capacity. Ideally, for me, I would love to have one person assigned. I think the police department and the fire department do a great job where they have stations, they have precincts. And why is that important? Because it increases the level of accountability. So if we have things that are not being done, if we have restrooms that aren't being opened on time, closed to avoid vandalism, if we have people that are camping in a certain park, that we have a point of contact. Can we afford that right now? No.
That's where I was getting at.
So if we need to, what we might need to start with is some public-private partnerships where maybe we have service clubs, faith-based organizations, et cetera, retiree organizations where we have a rotation. And maybe there's a particular day a week where people go and they just kind of monitor and just report, even if it's an assessment. Yeah, there's no issue here. And then those reports go back to a work group once a month that meets with PD. And it's a lot of unhoused service providers. And that work group talks about what we talked about with them was an Adopt a Park project where all of those services come to a park that might be inundated, and they apply services and they try to get as many people in that situation help as possible, and then they become almost like a mobile clinic but it's mobile service delivery. The reality is some people don't know where to go for help. They might have issues with the identification that's required to get certain help from certain organizations. So the goal is to kind of oversaturate those areas that are being inundated with those experiences and getting as many people help that want it as possible, and then moving on to the next area. Not developing full community centers dedicated to that or anything like that. The county has those resources. That's not our call to action. What we're talking about is more of an intervention project.
Yeah, I like the idea of the park ranger being at every park. I just didn't know funding-wise if we could start it
We are
yet.
not there yet.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. But
maybe,
it
like,
is a,
like you said about of notifying people, maybe on the code too, or on the signage, we can have the like see something, say something, report
Yeah.
thing. It can go onto it so people can kind of
yep.
communicate that.
And we can't let the mayor get away after his term is up with the park cleanups.
Yeah. I mean, our Mayor Serrato does a great job of initiating a lot of the community cleanups that take place. I think he's set a really good precedent. And, hats off to him and a lot of our council members that partake in those operations and our community service organizations. Bear Creek Yacht Club, Merced Walks. I know, John, you're in a creek now and then as well at times, so I appreciate everybody.
Should we do some of those ourselves?
Yeah, you just can't talk about business while you're there, because then you'd violate the Brown Act, but as long as trash is the topic, I think you're safe.
One thing bothers me, but there's only 2 parades a year in town. And the designated areas for the 2 food trucks, I think, is fantastic. It's always been known that environmental health works 8 to 5. There were quite a few pop-up food vendors that, as I drive by, I look at it, they're not following the health regulations. I know it because our Kiwanis Club operates a hot dog stand once in a while. And a few years ago, I saw at parades, people were walking with baking sheets of hot dogs, selling them right there. I volunteer up in Modesto with the cruise night, a little car parade for 1,000 cars. And people this year were going along with carts selling the hot dog and hamburgers. At least they had heat under there to keep the food at the right temperature. But my concern is, if we can build a flame that tall on an environmentalist butt about that tall, get them out there for those 2 days to monitor the parade route. Everybody's all sorts of worried about jalapeno peppers and iceberg lettuce and everything else getting sick from. Unsafe food, or not stored properly, not maintaining temperature, it's so easy to get sick from. You got 2,000 people lining Main Street for a parade. Do we want Monday morning headlines to say 1,700 people got sick at the parade?
Yeah.
We think we're gonna have a parade next year? You know, maybe you've got some influence with environmental, or somebody has a friend or an arm they can twist. Just, you know, a presence. You do it the first time, and the second time it ain't gonna be an issue.
Yeah, I know that it's a little bit outside of our purview just because I know the experience you're talking about. I think I was at that parade. I think I might have ate one of the hot dogs. But in all seriousness, I understand the concern. I'm right there with you. I know that we do have special events where people might try to come and sell food. We make sure the standard practice is, whether it's through Parks and Community Services or the planning department with like an encroachment permit or a street closure, that you're required to show your business license. And then you sign off as the event host that you're basically responsible to make sure that everybody there has a valid health permit to sell what they're selling. Going back to that, it's a county service, the environmental health. What we do is let environmental health know when our events are taking place, and it's their job to utilize their resources in that way. I will say, because of the inundation of those situations across at least California, I know our local environmental health agency has been doing more sting-type operations to investigate those operations, and they've been successful. They've confiscated a lot of bad product off of the street, so kudos to them for doing that. We'll continue to let them know when we have events where we know food is being sold, and then that way they can do some informed operations. Strengthen coordination with county to address impacts. We just did that one.
Can we
I'm sorry.
change it to strengthen partnerships
Yes.
with Merced County?
Instead of coordination?
Yeah,
Got it.
I just think it means like we're all working together instead of coordination. I feel like it's like we're coordinating everybody. Partnership is like kind of putting everybody in it.
Yeah. I'm good with that. So refinement, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lewis, you become the defunct clerk. 2.8, we're going to strengthen, and then in quotations, if you could add partnership.
I had to think about how to spell strengthen for a second. I didn't volunteer because I knew I'd spell it.
And then what we're going to do is strike through the word coordination on your note there, and that'll let us know we need to modify that. So go ahead and write coordination and just strike through it. Yep. Is everybody good with that? I feel like we're at a council meeting at this hour. Is everybody doing okay? Do we need to take a 5-minute break?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know if they're still cleaning it.
So, want to finish the last few things on this?
Sure. Are we, Commissioner Lewis
Okay.
gave you the evil stare. I don't know. I don't think you know what you're doing.
I'll come back.
You can excuse yourself.
Yeah. Bye, guys. After 6 kids, I'm telling you.
Okay, 2.9, this kind of goes to Commissioner Carlos's suggestion, I think, about the mayor's cleanups. Implement an adopt the park or friends of the park or an adopt an activity program. So I think that the intention there is, we heard a lot, and this was really awesome as someone that lives in Merced and works in Merced. Our consultant was blown away by the care and commitment from our community. they both shared, we had one of their colleagues was from like the San Diego, San Clemente region area down south of LA, and she was from Colorado, and they do work all across the country. And she said the level of community engagement and the rich conversations that they had with our community members through our assessment process was by far one of the most rewarding that they've had, which speaks volumes of the potential we have for stewardship here. I think sometimes you said it, I think, or maybe it was Holloway, that sometimes people don't get the invite to participate. So creating the mechanism where people feel like they are invited to come together and be part of the solution or part of the initiative is really all it takes. And so that's what this one's speaking to, is creating an Adopt a Park program. We did create one a couple years ago. We called it the Green Scout Initiative, where we had different Scout troops and Girl Scout troops sign up to adopt different parks in the city, and they would go do routine cleanups. Sometimes they would plant a tree, sometimes they would paint or install like a community library box or something where, you know, people could exchange books at the park. So we've started something like that, but I think a Friends of Merced Parks would be amazing to have a kind of an official nonprofit advocacy group for parks and recreation in our community.
Like the ones you see along the road, like.
Yeah, for Caltrans
Yeah.
and things like that.
And I've
Yep.
seen them down on, actually, that road that connects Yosemite all the way to Mission.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think I've seen Hunt
Campus?
Farms.
Oh, it was Hunt Farms, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a great example. Yep. Focus serving provision efforts on enhancing current program offerings and addressing high need gaps. So that's going to be an internal thing. Basically, what that's saying is we have limited resources. We have gaps that have been identified. We need to earmark those resources to address those gaps and not just keep doing the status quo because we've always done said program or this class. The last one in this section is to maintain an understanding of local public health indicators. So I talked about this earlier, and I'll give you the example that I gave City Council. If we collect data on who's participating, we also by default know who's not participating. So if I can identify the fact that we have 10% of the girls registered in our programs as we do the boys, I know that there's an issue. And it's probably not as simple as, well, girls just don't want to participate. There's probably something going on. So public health indicators help us be strategic in what we analyze to determine how effective we are in reaching our community. I use that example because we had an amazing experience this year where you guys have probably seen the huge uptick of girls flag football programming and collegiate play. There's all kinds of colleges now offering girls flag football scholarships. There's been a league generating. We have high school sports now for girls flag football. We have middle schools that are now considering girls flag football. So this year we created in our most popular division of football, flag football, which is JV, we created a girls JV division of flag football, and there was some trepidation. We didn't know if we would get very many signups, if we didn't, because it was new. And we were all but, how many, like 10 short of being full? 7. So we had almost 30 girls register specifically for 5th and 6th grade flag football. And that had always been a co-ed league, meaning boys and girls playing together. And so meeting that need is, the only reason we were able to do that is because we were looking at public health issues. We were paying attention to who's participating, who's not. Another example that we're seeing right now is we have a really poor participation rate among Southeast Asian students in our programs. That's concerning to me. So we need to look at, as a staff, what activities are we not offering, or what is our staff makeup, or what languages are we promoting things in? What activities or partnerships do we have in the community where we need to, it's one thing if Marcus comes and rents Bob Hart Square from us and his partners host Hmong American Day as a rental. It's a totally different initiative if we make sure that we're there marketing our activities for those attendees. That's a different level of commitment, right, to address that disparity. So that's what we mean when we talk about looking at public health indicators. It's really looking at who's participating, who needs to participate in our services that we're not reaching, and figuring out why and trying to address that through our marketing, our partnerships, and our programs. Any questions in that regard? Another example, seniors. Do we need underwater basket weaving classes for seniors? Maybe not, I don't know. One class I could tell you I would have never guessed that would be popular for our seniors was belly dancing. They love it. So, you know, finding a way to incorporate things to encourage more activity, more people participating. We were talking about Zumba the other night. Some nights it's great, some nights it's not so great, but it's free to the community. And we talked about how do we create like maybe a little niche with it. Maybe once a month we do a neon Zumba night and the lights are all off. We put black lights in the senior community hall and you wear your neon clothing and everybody's lit up like a neon light doing Zumba. You know, just kind of creating a little spin on it, or a parent and me Zumba night or something like that. So looking at public health indicators, looking at our resources, our capacity, and finding a way to address those disparities when we find them. All right.
Speaking
Yeah,
of which,
please.
Saturday, September 26th, at I believe it's 7 o'clock, there is almost a festival of belly dance. All sorts of different styles. A friend and I went to it last year. I accidentally saw the ad for it a couple of weeks ago. Apparently, there's all sorts of different styles of belly dance. Included in that is Hawaiian hula.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, a friend of mine is interested in belly dance. She had gone to the sessions at the senior center, but she ended up moving out of the area for work.
Okay.
Now she's back. But yeah, it's amazing what all is involved.
Yeah.
And you know, if anybody's interested in finding out about it,
Who
there it
knew,
is.
right?
And
Yeah.
what time and the
I believe it's
location?
7 o'clock. If you look online, belly dance display or whatever, you probably find it. Apparently, they've been doing this for several years now. It's like 24, 25 now.
Okay.
So, you know,
All right.
something different in town.
Good to know. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Are we good to push on, or do you guys need to take a stretch break, or we're at the 8 o'clock mark just about, and we got 2 sections left?
Maybe like a 3-minute break.
Okay, let's do a recess until 7:58. We'll give you 1 extra minute.
I'll follow him to the water.
point, the influencing program. Add influencing programming.
So when you explain it, it makes sense, but if you're just reading down the line, I wouldn't get any of that.
Yeah, okay. That's good feedback. Thank you. Is that the consensus? Kind of explaining what we mean by public health indicators, like if there's things that are leading to barriers. All right, let's push through. Next area, safety and inclusion. Enhancing current and future parks and facilities with sustainable design that encourages safety and creates accessibility for users of all ages and abilities. So this is really a park planning focus. What we're talking about here is really kind of like crime prevention by design. I hear a lot about that in like planning and PD efforts. It's for us, if we allow a park to become secluded, it instantaneously becomes more susceptible to criminal activity. So when we have parks planned in development plans, we really want them to be central to communal life so that there's eyes on throughout the day. If they're just behind two lots, because there was like this development, weird lot, couldn't really put a house on, so they just called it parkland. And then it becomes a maintenance crime nightmare. PD can't keep up with it, public works. Then what happens is the city ends up just vacating it and going, Marcus, since you live there, would you like another backyard? We'll just extend your fence and now you own that. Because it becomes too much of a pain for the city to maintain, prevent crime. So what we're talking about here, really, we don't have a park planner, our park planning, or in our planning department, but we do have park planning consultants to bring on when we acquire resources to develop a park. So we want to make sure that that is a focal point of the design process, so that there's community neighborhood residents surrounding the area. There's tiny tot lots are next to restrooms. There's not, there's good lines of sight. And one of the things at Applegate Park that's nice is you could be at the moat, be all the way to in front of Kittyland. So if you're enjoying a performance at the moat of Shakespeare in the Park, you could look and almost see the playground. See the skate park, other than if they're in the bowl, but anyway, lines of sight are really important, lighting, those types of things help prevent crime and increase healthy use of park space. That's what we're talking about. Not gonna be a routine day in, day out for us, but make sure that this is something when this goes into the general plan, open space chapter, that planning knows, talk to developers and say, hey, you gotta get your parks reviewed by Parks and Services Department or their on-call park planners to review it and make sure that they're being developed. Any questions with that or there? 3.2, increase security measures in parks. Well, that's pretty bland, pretty broad statement, but what we know that to be is we want parks to be walkable, we want them to be visible, we want them to be interactive, so we want people to be able to utilize them, and we want to have a presence possible.
Like the
we
park
talked
ranger.
about the park ranger program. We also talked about service clubs being a part of, Adopt a Park Day, some of our other initiatives like public-private partnerships. Hey, there's local businesses that want to have service days. I think YPN, right?
Yeah.
Don't you guys have like a service day that you? So there's businesses and organizations that have service days that people might want to go and just do a cleanup. Those cleanups tend to keep people out that are throwing trash in the park on at least those days. So the combination of those things, better security in parks. Improving safety and perceptions of safety in parks, trails, open spaces through increased visible presence and coordinated community-based safety efforts. So speaking more to that 3.2 initiative, but more specifically about parks, trails, and open space by being visible. Having people there, those spaces being active so that it increases way with type of a crime there, or it's a safe legal act. 3.4, sorry.
Just going back to the security measures, is there any like verbiage in there about any cameras? Is that like a thought or anything
Yes.
like that?
Yes, there is. I think that the 3.3 and 3.2, we definitely want to increase cameras. We've been working with PD. We have old city cameras in our park infrastructure. It's just so grainy, it's not real reliable when there is a crime. The thing that cameras do really helpful is it addresses the perception that you're being watched, right? Can curb behavior. And even if it doesn't curb behavior, it gives us evidence that's required to build a case against criminal activity that's taken place in the so it may not prevent all crime, but it provides tools necessary to hold criminals accountable.
I just asked because that's one of the tools they used at the Applegate Park,
Yes.
right?
Yes, so we
So-
added cameras outside of the zoo. We added cameras next to the playground, and now we put one by Laura Fountain and Steven Steiner statue on M Street, looking into the park. Yeah, we've definitely been adding them throughout different parks. That park inventory assessment that we talked about in one of the earlier ones, that's one of the things we want to look at is what parks don't have or that are a lot of calls for service either because they're damaged or there's crime going on. Great point. I have a quick question. I'm all about efficiency. I do not know what the difference between 3.2 and 3.3 is. Are we okay just having 3.3 and just adding
Security or
security
something?
measures?
Uh-huh.
I think it's a little redundant having them broken out like that.
So do you want me to write
Yeah,
it,
we
just
could say
combine 3.2,
combine
3.3?
3, 2, and 3. Um, 3.4, strengthen coordinated efforts that help individuals experiencing homelessness transition into stable housing. Again, we talked about this being something in community connection that we were focusing on with 2.8, strengthen coordination with county. We talked about partnership. This is really speaking about homeless transition to stable housing. You guys want to keep that? Do you want to modify the language? Do you feel like it's already addressed through community?
I think something actually almost the opposite. I would remove, could you go back up to community connection? I would remove 2.8 and put that where 3.4 is. I feel
Okay.
like this fits more in safety than it does community connection, because it's not something we'd be doing community outreach on. It would be more interdepartmental connection.
Okay.
And I think 3.4, I don't like the wording on, because I think it does put too much of the onus on us. I think 2.8 explains it a lot better, where it's a connection with other departments and organizations to get them the information they need, run those partnerships. So I would say get rid of 2.8 from the community connection, use that exact same verbiage for 3.4 and get rid of 3.4.
Okay.
Your eye on that paper.
Okay, so we're going to remove 2.8. And then we're going to revise 3.4
With verbiage from 2.8?
with verbiage from 2.8. And so Marcus, for clarification, are we talking about just replacing the verbiage directly with
Yeah,
the,
I
with
think
the
so.
change to partnership instead of coordination?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think completely getting rid of the portion on transition to stable housing.
Okay.
I think that puts a little bit, I mean, that is obviously the goal.
Right.
But I do think that puts too much of the onus on the result.
Got it.
On our
Okay.
department.
Okay. Very good. Good work. All right. 3.5, reduce cultural language barriers to ensure equitable access to parks and recreation services, increasing belonging and cultural celebration. So I think we've done a decent job this last year at trying to incorporate some new and upcoming cultural celebrations in our community and supporting those through our venues being used. I also think that we could do a better job on our leisure class front. So we may not be cultural brokers, or we may not have the staff that are the best cultural representation of different groups in our community, but we could definitely support our facilities being used to offer classes by different community organizations that focus on culture. So just as an example, we talked about dancing. There's a lot of culture-specific dance classes that are out there that we could partner with our facilities being used to offer to the community. We could also do art classes, beadwork, art, tapestry, singing, drumming, dance we already talked about. I will say we, at General Vang Pao and at, culture is very broad, right? We don't just mean ethnic necessarily, but at the regional sports complex, the playground culture that we tried to express was inclusivity. And so we have signs that have Braille on the signs, and we have those signs not just where people would necessarily read Braille, but also people that never even think about Braille. We have a clock on the highest climbing feature at the playground that says the number 12 through 11, and then it has Braille indicated on what that number looks like in Braille. And the goal is to make sure that it gets people that don't think about those things every day to be more mindful of them. Yeah, and then at Vang Pao Park in the playground, we actually took the panels that you might typically see, like tic-tac-toe, X's and O's, or ABC 1, 2, 3, and we included Hmong symbols on there. So it's a way to kind of educate our community about, oh, that's the symbol for foot in Hmong, or that's the symbol for rabbit in Hmong. And so it's a language preservation, it's a cultural celebration initiative. So we are doing this right now through some of our facilities. We want to continue to lean into that movement with some of our leisure classes as well.
I'm going to suggest too, maybe like the performances, like Shakespeare in the Park or something too. It's a, like another thing that people can come out for.
Absolutely. Yep. Resources and stewardship. This is more about us either working internally on our resources or expanding our reach through stewardship opportunities. So 4.1 is really looking at our financial sustainability strategy. So right now, we don't have a whole lot of standards of practice about pricing of things or cost recovery models. We have updated our pricing of programs pretty routinely over the past few years. It hadn't been adjusted since 2009. So there was a lot of inflation that took place. Every single program that we were operating was in the red every season. It was just too expensive compared to what we were charging. We also historically had a lot of subsidy from grants that federally had dried up over the last 5 years that used to offset the cost that the community wasn't paying. And so we had a pretty grim reality the first couple of years that I got here, that we were just underwater, and council really put the onus on us to change that situation, take our operation seriously like a business, and think about our cost recovery model. So one of the things that we want to do here is update the financial sustainability strategy through maintenance management plans, through financial sustainability workshops with our staff. We've identified a couple of opportunities through our statewide resource, which is called California Park and Recreation Society. I know for some of you longer-term commissioners, Commissioner Lewis and Holloway, you may have remember the gentleman that came from the advocacy branch of CPRS, Steve. He came and presented about those opportunities for commission to go to CPRS trainings. And they offer financial sustainability training sessions as well. So myself and probably our supervisors will be going through that module to make sure that we can look at what we charge for what we do and what our cost of service is, and making sure that we're making very informed decisions about staffing and things like that. There's some things that we pay to do that we might be able to do through partnerships. We just haven't pushed ourselves to try it before because we've used finances to do it.
Yeah.
Still have CPRS conferences?
They do, yeah. The early bird registration is open right now. And we actually put it in the budget to send one commissioner this year. So sounds like John's been, so I don't know if he would want to go as the chair, but our hope is that one commissioner a year gets to go so that you guys can go with our staff and learn some more details about Parks and Recreation and the opportunities that other cities are doing, just to kind of get outside the box a little bit about what we're doing versus what other communities are there. It's a great opportunity to meet other staff in other cities as well. Sometimes we recruit when we're there, you know, if we have openings. So it's really good capacity building opportunity.
I'd be interested in attending if somebody else doesn't want to go.
Okay.
Just to throw it out there.
Amazing to see what is coming about in playground equipment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have a huge,
Sit down and you get a price.
yeah, you have a huge expo hall that's just 2 days of just showboating what new stuff's out there. It's like when you were a kid and you got the East Bay magazine of all the shoes that were coming out. That's kind of what CPRS Expo's like.
Do you think it'd be beneficial if we added, update the financial, like if we did it like every 2 years, like to add verbiage of like making sure it's being consistent?
Yeah, I think that's a really good, it's a really good suggestion. And
What's realistic? Is 2 years realistic, or every
yeah,
year?
well, I mean, every year, to be
probably
honest,
better.
every year we do an annual budget as a staff. What we're talking about here isn't reviewing our budget. It's
Yeah.
more about like, what are the standards of practice, or what are the baselines that we're looking at benchmarking against to change our strategy. To be honest, Commissioner, we do not have the staff, the administrative staff, to do it on an annual basis.
Okay.
What I would suggest is biannual, and then a full report on an annual basis. So looking at what our cost recovery realities were. The other thing that I would say is we deal a lot with trends. We're not the water department where you have a water waste sewage fee that doesn't change for 5 years. It stays the same, right?
Yeah.
Like our revenues aren't as predictable as other city sources. And so it can be detrimental sometimes to do annual reviews. Not that you don't want to look at your budget on a year-to-year basis, but you don't want to change your financial strategy because you might hit a hiccup or a bubble. and you make changes programmatically or to your cost recovery model, and then all of a sudden the next year you're completely out of whack because you were just riding this kind of wave that you thought was coming of pickleball or badminton or underwater basket weaving or whatever. And come to find out that was a fad. It wasn't even a trend, and it was short-lived. And the next thing you know, we put all these resources to training staff to do that program, and nobody's signing up. So I think a biannual financial sustainability update is feasible. So if we want to make that refinement on 4.1, that we want to do a biannual update of the financial sustainability strategy. And then that,
Commend the cities on being able to keep prices affordable.
Yeah.
particularly that's
yeah.
I just think that, like you said, there was like things that they're like, or the turf, right?
Right.
They made it all pretty, but no one budgeted to, like, we have to maintain it and replace it, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like 10 years later.
Annual upkeep.
Biannual update, and if you just put in parentheses, I'll know that that's what we need to add. Yeah, so we're good.
I have a question. I don't know if it falls under
Sure.
this too, but like as far as like as the commission, is this something that we would be seeing like how we're doing like that on an annual basis or? how would
Yep,
it
so the second one there, 4.2, conducting an annual cost of service analysis. What we would do is come to you as a commission and say, here's our actual cost to providing these services. One of the things that's really beneficial in your pros plan document, so that's the big thick one, right? If you look at, and I apologize because, oh, they are numbered. I wish I had it tabbed. It's probably resources and stewardship because no, it's like the next 2 pages though. Here we go. Okay, it is page 51 in your pros plan. So you're going to see a graph that the bottom of the graph shows, let me see if I can jump to this. For our viewers. This is an example of financial strategy. So on the bottom of the graph, well, on the axis, we have high subsidy, meaning you have a low cost recovery expectation, all the way up to low subsidy, high cost recovery expectation. So what that means is we're putting a lot of funding up front, and we don't expect to get a lot of that back. That's on the bottom of the y-axis. On the top is we're barely putting anything in to support financially this operation because we're getting a ton of revenue from it. So we're recovering all of our costs and some. Okay, on the x-axis, we have common good on the far left. And on the far right, you have individualized or like private classes, private rentals, private. So the more individualized the service, the healthy financial strategy is the higher the cost recovery. If Marcus comes in and says, Director Jensen, I want private use of the senior center hall. I know it has a 400-person capacity, but I want to practice shadow boxing and I want that venue. I would be insane to subsidize that use of that venue, right? That is the bottom of the spectrum, or that is the far left, that's high subsidy, individualized. That's opposite of this. This is healthy. We don't want to be the opposite of this. And what we're looking at now is really using this as a benchmark for analyzing the classes that we're offering. If we have classes with less than 10 participants per month and those participants are only paying $40, but we're using that space for multiple 6 or more hours a week, we're not covering our cost just to keep the lights on. And so for 10 people in the community or 4 people in the community, should we be subsidizing at that rate? Probably not. So the goal here is to be on the far end of the spectrum where we have high cost recovery for individualized services. And then when we do like special events like parades or Junior Giants, you know, we want free programs for the most people in the community. And you want to have a healthy balance of that. You don't want to do all free for all things because you'll go broke. We'll be in a budget deficit every single year. We want a healthy cost recovery financial strategy, to your point, April. And so, you know, going back to the point we brought up earlier, if we have a lousy Junior Giant turnout, let's say COVID hits, we run Junior Giants, unexpected, right? Medical situation, pandemic. We get 20 people to sign up. Nobody's funding us. We have no cost recovery. We only serve 20 people to sign up. That would be a bad time to redo our financial strategy based on that hiccup, because that's not really trending, right? It was just a bump. So likewise, we may have a year where we have 50 people call and reserve pickleball courts because 50 people are hot on pickleball right now. And we're the only venue in town. And little did we know, Los Banos is building a facility with 10 pickleball courts in their community. And next thing you know, we plan all these facility revenue projections for pickleball, and then Los Banos opens up and our revenue drops in half. So we want a healthy model, a healthy mix of cost recovery programs. This is a great illustration of what we mean. Low subsidy, high individual cost recovery. You pay to play. Great common good. We want to subsidize that because we have the max impact in the community. All right. Evaluate 4.3, evaluate long-term partnership and governance options to ensure future feasibility of Applegate Zoo. So we talked about this a little bit earlier in that Applegate Zoo is a regional asset. State parks are state assets. National parks are national assets. Does anybody here know how much Mariposa County pays for Yosemite National Park to stay up in operation? It's kind of a facetious question because it's a national asset, right? So Mariposa County may benefit from transportation going through there, et cetera, but so they have skin in that game. So they want to make sure that the roads through their community are maintained. They want to make sure that they are making investments to make sure that people that get to that regional amenity are continuing to come because it pays. It spills over into sales tax locally. And so what this speaks to is we need to start marketing, communicating with our public-private partners and our interdepartmental government partners, the fact that Merced Applegate Zoo is a regional asset that happens to be in the city of Merced. The city of Merced may not always be able to be the sole funder of the zoo's operation. As a regional asset, there's probably opportunities to expand the sense of ownership and responsibility to ensure that the zoo stays open, that it's maintained, and that it continues its growth. Those conversations aren't happening at this point. And so John may have some perspective on historical relationships that existed, but right now we don't have a private partnership. We don't have a nonprofit partnership. and we don't have an interdepartmental agreement to help ensure Applegate Zoo is funded, maintained, and planned for as a regional asset. Commissioner?
Real quick, the zoo was a partnership between the city and the Merced Zoological Society for a number of years. That's when the city first implemented an admission fee. Nobody had any idea how many people came to the zoo every year. No idea what would be generated in revenue. And the way things were structured, the Zoo Society provided volunteers to collect the admission, did the accounting, operated the gift shop, guaranteed the city X number of dollars per year in revenue. Part of that was the collected admission. Any shortcoming in that, they made up sales from the gift shop. Honestly, what happened was the leadership in the Zoo Society was shrinking. People got older. I'm one of them. People left, people died. The same people had to be the leaders year after year after year. Burnout is very real, I can tell you about it. That's what happened. The successor leadership very shortly became overburdened because there was a small number of people trying to do a pretty large job. And the biggest hassle or problem was maintaining volunteers to collect the admission. They got to the point where they were paying somebody a couple of days a week for maybe 4 hours or whatever to have somebody there at the window to be able to collect the admission. And the successor leadership finally got to the point where they said, hey, we're burned out too. And they closed the Merced Zoological Society. At that point, revenue ceased to come in. There was nobody there to collect the money, therefore nobody there to give it to the city. And the gift shop's been closed for a number of years. I'd love to see a successor organization come in, maybe Friends of the Merced Zoo or Friends of Applegate Zoo or something like that. If somebody could find the old bylaws, just dust them off and reprocess them, for about $1,000, you can become a 501c3 tax-exempt organization and be able to provide those functions. But the key was volunteers. Without the volunteers, the city cannot afford to pay somebody minimum wage to sit there for whatever number of hours a week the zoo is open. It's a shame, but that's reality.
I have a question. So in regards to that, as it being a regional asset, is this something that eventually we would want to expand it, make it like Fresno Zoo, where we can have that large revenue? And how do we get there? Is that what this is for?
Kind of. I think that Fresno is a good case study to consider. One of the things that Fresno did with Chaffee Zoo 2 decades ago was nothing like it is today. One of the things that they did is they committed to, they had an outside organization that came on as a management company to run the facility. So it became almost like a business, an enterprise that the city was investing in. It was in a city park, very similar structure to Merced Applegate Zoo. What changed was Measure Z. It was a special sales tax put on the ballot in Fresno County to completely fund specifically Chaffee Zoo. So there's a piece of a percent for every dollar that's spent in Fresno County, not the city of Fresno, the county. So we're talking about millions of people that goes to fund Chaffee Zoo every year. It's a completely different organizational makeup and financial funding stream. But with that being said, There's other opportunities. Whether or not that is feasible in Merced County, I don't know. I don't think that Merced Applegate Zoo is utilized at the level that Chaffee had gotten to. But I think that the council investment with ARPA funds recently, and I think you were able to go to the zoo grand opening, we've had a phenomenal level of community support since opening. I don't know if we've been open a day where we haven't brought in at least $1,200. I mean, and I'm talking about every day we're open, even the first day of school. We're having families come in $1,000 a day. So the revenue is changing. We did update the fee structure a little bit. We still charge the least amount. It's free 0 to 3 years old. I think it's $3 for seniors and vets, and then it's $4 and $5 for the ages in between there. So it's still relatively affordable. I think the investment that City Council made showed that we can make a very awesome facility with additional resources. The Run is another community initiative to add another exhibit. At the ribbon cutting, I don't know if you remember, but the chancellor committed another $20,000. We had a private donor out of Fresno County that contributed $200,000 a couple years ago so we can have a third zookeeper. So I think that we're showing the community that there are levels of support out there that could change the trajectory of Merced Applegate Zoo. It's not going to happen in and of itself by the city. It has to require long-term partnerships and governance options, which is what we're talking about with this action item here, to make sure that the zoo is feasible to run through the city. To Commissioner John's point, the zoo didn't used to be as expensive as it is today. The zoo is fully staffed by city employees, including the gift shop. One thing that I will mention that I personally think is an issue here is when we're talking about governance options, we're looking at partnerships, stakeholders, right? But the gift shop is a huge asset that is untapped right now. We did get the city council and city manager's blessing to move into creating a business license for the gift shop so that we can reopen that. There's some steps that have to be taken by the city in order to do that. We plan on continuing that journey and hopefully opening the gift shop later this year, which I think is going to be another revenue stream that we haven't seen just yet. In addition to that, we've started leaning on non-traditional partners like our schools. And although schools have utilized Merced Applegate Zoo as kind of I don't know if there's a special term for it, Commissioner Holloway, but like a field trip, you know, kind of like a non-education based field, like a fun day or a field day. We were working with MCOE over the summer, and we created a curriculum through their curriculum development team that aligns our animals and their habitats with STEM requirements for students in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. So now if you book a tour for your students in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade through MCOE, they provide you a curriculum that meets all your students' science and math requirements for that age group. And when you come through the zoo, you can actually attend and meet ed requirements instead of it being like a weekend or an after-school field trip or a full day out of school. It helps meet some of those education requirements. So we're looking at new partnerships, new business options, but long story shorter, to your point, yes, Merced Applegate Zoo has a lot of potential that's untapped right now. And I think that some of that is leaning on the fact that residents from just the city of Merced are not the only ones that benefit from this, hence our partnership with a county office of education and not just our local school district, because we see that asset as a county-wide amenity, not just a city specific amenity.
This Applegate Zoo will never become Chaffee. It just can't. One thing is accreditation. The animals at that zoo are all native to this area, with exceptions from Merced
Sure.
sister cities. Was it Albury, Austria, or something? The emu are native there. Somoto, Nicaragua is the native base for the capuchin monkeys. But another issue with the zoo is it's pretty much landlocked. You got the
Right.
creek on one side, you got our street on the other, you got 25th Street, so you got a little bit of open land in front of the zoo, down about as far as the playground. And that's as far as you can possibly
Right.
expand that thing. Otherwise, it becomes XYZ Street Zoo.
Right.
Pick it up and move it. They had to do that a couple of years ago with the flood.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
yeah, it's not designed to be Chaffee Zoo.
Right.
It has a very definite place. It serves as a rescue location for a lot of animals that can't be released in the wild. We mentioned earlier the Elroy donation. It takes two people to pick Elroy up to put him in a wagon to take him into his enclosure at night.
Yeah.
And that was several years ago. When I was active.
It's probably 3 or 4 now. Yeah, he's a big boy.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
And where else are you going to get to see a coyote unless you live out in the country?
Right.
The foxes, the...
And say on your note about the education, I really
Yeah.
like that idea. And I know that Fresno also does like intimate experiences with the animals that you can purchase like separately. And I think Folsom Aquatic Center also does things like that. If maybe you had like an animal, obviously that's safe to be around
Sure.
or something, maybe not bears with all the kids, but maybe
Yeah.
they can charge like a small amount that they can have, I don't know, another way to generate income.
Absolutely. We are venturing down that path right now. We're developing a couple of initiatives. One, an annual pass. Second, a family pass. So basically, you get a discount if you buy, I think, is it $10 or $20? And it gets you up to 5 people inside for the family pass. And then the other pass that we're looking at is a park hopper. So for the day, you can go to the zoo or Kittyland for your family for a set fee. And so those 3 pass kind of initiatives are things that we're adding to our repertoire. In addition to that, I mentioned earlier to Commissioner Holloway's point about not having a whole lot of facility rental options in Merced. The Rosati Education Center was actually dedicated specifically for zoo education efforts. Over the years, it's kind of became a Swiss Army knife of addressing community needs. It's held dance classes, it's held private birthday parties, it's held community workshop or staff workshops.
That was for the, like the summer camp for the
Yes,
children? Okay.
it became summer camp, the playground program that we had. So we're re-embracing that as a zoo-specific facility. So we moved all of our leisure classes, karate, dance, ballet, folklorico, everything that used to be offered in there is now offered at the Senior Community Center after hours. The zoo has the ability to use the Rosati Education Center now for school classroom tours, private experiences and birthday parties, and we're building in the menu of options and kind of what we think folks would be interested in renting that facility to experience as part of our revenue model, basically. So if you can imagine a birthday reservation where you go in, you decorate it. We might have a character come in, you know, dressed up as a mermaid or Tarzan or something like that as part of your experience. All of your attendees get goat food to feed the goats. You also have a docent cart where you get to see skulls and touch furs and eggs of different sizes, and maybe there's some animal interaction with our boa constrictor or our ball python or our hissing cockroaches and some other things that are petting friendly.
And that's the only place you want to get up close and personal with a mountain lion claw.
Right.
They have
So-
them on display.
So we are adding those amenities as part of what our offering is at Merced Applegate Zoo. The other thing that I want to give credit to MCOE for bringing up that we didn't even consider was doing business party reservations. So like a safari night,
Yeah.
and we put cocktail tables out and you can have, food and beverage there at the facility, and it's after hours, so most of the animals will be denned by then, but there are some that might be able to be left out longer, or we just have experiences that we offer, like we do for kids for like lights on before Christmas. We have Mermaids and Pirates, shameless plug, Mermaids and Pirates this weekend and next weekend. And we have Earth Day celebration at the zoo where they do a scavenger hunt called Hop and Go Seek, and you have to find things and find the bunny around the facility. So there's event specifics that we're building. There's reservation uses that we're building in, and the gift shop, and then the multiple levels of passes. Those are all part of our revenue
Maybe
plan.
they can get a T-shirt for booking it, and then that's like promoting it when
Yeah,
you go.
yeah,
Merced
exactly.
Zoo Or
Yep,
something,
yep,
We used to be able to do a free day.
Yeah,
If you're bringing in 1,000 a day,
right,
maybe they get a little ticket to come back
Yep.
or something in the little party package or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. And we are,
we want to keep the zoo affordable for everybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is Merced, this ain't.
Right. And we are working with other non-traditional partners to get one-time grant funding. So we funded, was it 90 family passes this year through, at the Celebration of Fatherhood, they purchased passes. Yeah, and awesome, the day after opening day, we started seeing them come in. So people are utilizing them. And so we're creating the Fatherhood Celebration. Kudos to HSA, Merced County. They actually purchased them ahead of time for the event to give out. And then we entered a collaboration between the Children's Discovery Museum, I think it was Merced Youth Soccer Association, and ourselves, and we each bought each other's passes, basically, so we can give out memberships to, at our own events, we can give out a free day at Children's Discovery Museum and a free rec soccer pass for MYSA, and they can give out zoo passes to their attendees. So that was kind of a unique one-off that we participated in. And then, the Celebration of Fatherhood was another one.
I know at the Kids Discovery, they have like, if you have the EBT card or WIC, you get in at a lower cost. Is that, like, does the state fund that and I don't know much about it. So I'm wondering if we did something like that similar at the zoo?
Yeah, typically those are subsidized by contracts.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily, and I don't want to speak for Children's Discovery Museum because I'm not on their board, I don't work
Yeah.
for them. But a lot of times we may have something where there's free passes that are given out, but they're not free. There's been a subsidy that was
Yeah.
acquired. So we got a $5,000 grant earlier this year, which allowed us to trade membership passes with Children's Discovery Museum. But we didn't just get their passes for free. There was an in-kind commitment.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then-
I wonder how they get funding, or how they can afford to let people in for $1.
Contracts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something we can look at for the zoo?
Potentially. It depends
Yeah.
on how we align with what people are trying to do. So for example, right now, it's free for us to get in if you're 0 to 3.
Yeah.
That's a lot of free entries, especially for young families that are going into the zoo. Oftentimes, we may have one paying adult, one child paid, and 2 children free. So I feel like, and that's built in regardless of contracts. We just make that, try to
Yeah.
make it affordable. But we could have either events or fees changed based on funding or days. The issue for me administratively is if we do something where we say we get a grant and we create a free or we change our pricing tier. and this happened with swim in the city of Merced. Swim lessons went from $10 because they were subsidized, but that subsidy was driven by a community grant that was generated by some very strong community members who had lost children due to drowning. Those grants were acquired by the city due to those outside efforts, and it limited the need to subsidize those lessons. So they were $10 for 8 classes. The grant went away. When I came in, we hadn't adjusted fees since 2009. Since that time, they were also subsidized, so they were only $10. We made them $30. I almost got taken out to the alley and, dealt with, because the reality is it sets a unique expectation in the community. What I would be willing to do is look for resources under this objective and see if we could do like free community days, where it's subsidized and we have, yes. Yeah, where we have blocks of time, or we have free days, or we have like Dad and Me, or, right.
Kids Discovery does the last Sunday or something of the
Something
month, or
like that,
was-
to where,
They ran out of funding for that as well.
Oh, okay.
That was subsidized through Merced County.
Oh, okay,
They're trying to restart that. Source,
gotcha.
exact same thing, but even that is not free because they work in another system. There's usually some
yeah.
Right.
And, but I would be much more willing to do something like that organizationally, because it's a event, right? It's an experience. The issue with the fee revision is it creates an unhealthy expectation, and then all of a sudden we don't get the grant renewed, and the next year we go to $30 from 10, and people get mob mentality, and next thing you know, we're looking for new jobs. So we want to make sure that we stay affordable. Yeah, but we also want to make sure that we are responsible and not, because at the end of the day, it's a city council decision. They're the board of the governing body of the city of Merced. And if we can be more cost neutral to the general fund, we become less competition for other priorities like fire, roads, police department, operations and things like that. We want to be less liable for any budget deficit. And so if we can work on grants that allow us to be as cost effective and affordable as possible, we'll definitely do that. But I think that the work that we are doing and the impact that the community support and the impact we're looking to have has proven, to me at least, and I think our staff, that we're capable of doing things we weren't sure of after we reopened. We've gotten a great community response. So I think those Bobcat kittens have a lot to do with it, but we'll take a little bit of credit. Things are going good at the zoo, but again, we need to evaluate the long-term partnerships and governance options that are available, because we may not always be the new thing in town that everybody wants to go to every week, right? There's a honeymoon period we know we're riding right now. So we want to keep innovating and creating new partnerships to sustain this momentum.
I like the events. I know I went to a zoo in Singapore and they had a night zoo walkthrough too. I think creating it, like just recreating it, making it feel like new, or the
Yeah.
experience new,
Yep.
would be cool.
Yeah, going backwards.
Yeah. or
I've
giving
seen
them
people do that too,
flashlights or
where,
something when they go.
if you have a certain route that you usually go, you come in the exit and you have everybody go through the opposite direction. It's a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, creating different things like that. Those are great ideas. Establish long-term financial sustainability strategy for the zoo as a pseudo enterprise operation. So this is more specific to kind of like the funding approach to the zoo. So similar to Merced Regional Sports Complex, thinking of it as a regional revenue generating opportunity, as opposed to this just ongoing unfunded mandate that we keep putting money from the general fund into. Evaluate and update developer impact fees. This is a big one for the general plan. So developers, when they come in and they build, in the city of Merced, they pay what's called impact fees. Those impact fees are utilized by the city to ensure that the infrastructure exists to service the public after the development is finished and the homes are sold. If the impact fees are low, we can't do things like renovate McNamara turf. There's no collection of revenues from development. On top of that, there are maintenance districts that are developed. So you have new neighborhoods. Those maintenance districts are required to be maintained by the fees that are brought in through property taxes, right? That's different than developer fees. What we're talking about with developer fees is the builder that is creating the community pays the city basically a fee for every home that's built and sold, and those fees can be used to expand services to meet that growth in population. So other communities have been able to build entire recreation centers, they've built sports fields, they've done, I'm learning every single week, it seems like, we are one of several communities that have a zoo or a rescue. I just learned today that there was a small operation in Clovis that I didn't know about. But anyway, long story short, the developer impact fees help fund ongoing maintenance and repair of community level park infrastructure, as well as streets and roads and things like that as well. But for a while, we had reduced them to a point where they were almost non-existent because of the recession. And we're talking about 2008, 2009. They hadn't been touched for quite a long time. And just like my $10 to $30 increase, example, you can't jump too high or you'll scare off development. So you got to be in line with your market. And when we've been so cheap for so long, if you jump too expensive too fast, people would just stop and hold out until there's something that changes and development's cheaper. So City Manager McBride, Planning Manager Sam Roche, they've done a good job of looking at developer fees in the general plan update as a way to ensure that we have a more long-term sustainability plan for growth as a community, not just continue this path of deferred maintenance because we can't afford to maintain things after they're built. So that's a big one that will go into the analysis for the general plan amendment. That's more of a planning feature, but we'll be there as the advocates to ensure that park development and renovation and maintenance are part of those impact fees.
When developers are looking to come in, one of the things they're looking at is what does the city offer? What sort of programs do they have, what are the parks like? So that becomes an attractive feature for the developer to sell his housing.
Correct.
We gotta maintain a certain level to attract more development.
Yep.
And again, this is said is a developer impact fee. It's not something like the special assessments or the like the
No,
old things. This
those are
is like
separate. So
the
yeah, so
actual developer.
yes,
not
those
on the
go through the
people.
developer, the Melrose and those things, those are passed on
To
to
the
the
county,
the
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 purchaser.
user of the development, right, which are the homeowners or the landlords. What we're talking about is the developer themselves.
The
When they come in, those impact fees are paid by the developer, and it's almost like a privilege tax. Like we're going to allocate this zoned area for you to come in and develop. We're going to review all your plans. We're going to do all this work to support your development in our community. We want your business, obviously we want to be developer friendly. But to John's point, we don't want to cut our nose to spite our face and then end up with no funding to
Yes.
maintain the level of quality of life that our residents expect because we're just overly friendly to developers.
Is that what the issue was, like you said, or does it go back? Is that kind of what happened to the Bellevue
It's
Ranch
exactly
area
what
too?
happened.
Okay.
It's exactly what happened in Bellevue Ranch. The developer fees were almost non-existent in the name of encouraging ongoing development because there was a market crash, right, that led to developers not being able to afford to do business. We were in a unique position where we had a huge community development plan underway in Bellevue Ranch, which is only really half of what its full build-out is planned for at this point. It's huge. And so there was a lot of fear associated with that development stopping and up and leaving. Little did we know, Merced was a blip in the map of developer issues across the entire country. So no matter how much we waived, developers were gonna stop. And so we didn't collect fees for years in the name of being more friendly for developers. And I think it helped in some regard, but in the long game, right, we're here now where we have aging infrastructure that needs to be renovated, restored, maintained, and we've had to defer those things pretty routinely because we just don't have that cash. And so what we do have cash to do now, instead of repairing and maintaining things, we're saving up pennies to try to just build parks in that neighborhood in phased approaches. General Vang Pao being the first, but we have, make no mistake, we have 4 additional parks in that neighborhood. We have M Circle, which was zoned for open space. Right now, half of it is zoned or built for a bus stop ride share. The other half is a quarter of it's a fire station, and then the other quarter is supposed to be a park. We have Lester Yoshida, right around the corner from Elmer Murchie.
Yes.
And then up north, we have Charles Ogletree at the north side of that development off of Bellevue and G Street. There's 4 community parks still in that neighborhood that we have no funding to build, not even start. So we are significantly in need of funding because we limited those developer impact fees so much that it just put us 12 years behind the ball, basically, of collecting fees to build those out. And that's more of a general plan conversation, but it's something that we really wanted to make sure that in our pros plan, it was reflected that there are serious consequences if we limit liabilities for some people over here. The community has impacts over here down the road, and we're seeing that in Bellevue Ranch.
Still have the land set aside requirement?
For the what? I'm sorry.
Still have the land set aside requirement in developments?
Yes, yeah, so there's still, and going back to the kind of gap analysis, when we talked about the 3.8 acres per 1,000 residents, our goal is 5. So we work with the developers to try to get to that 5 as much as possible and make sure that it's not 5 acres of just easements that they can't build on anyway, that's entitled land for MID or PG&E or something. And we want it to be usable quality space, not just space you can't build on.
Right.
That's how they finished the dog park. Last lot on the corner was owned by the developer. They did a swap, that land for credit for parkland in another developer. Basically, I think we got shafted on the deal. Couldn't put a driveway for either our street or Yosemite Avenue into that corner. But they needed it to finish off the dog park, make it a decent size. The city owned most of it from First Street down. The city manager had no idea what the city owned. They told me where the marker was. Went out, found the marker, had a measuring wheel. We own 568 feet straight ahead. That's how the city found out what they owned, what they didn't own.
Resources
Learn
and
something new every day.
resources and stewardship. We need the community partners, definitely. Let's see. So 4.6, pursue and secure funding to advance the design, construction, and maintenance of previously identified, that's supposed to say but, currently unfunded park projects. So that's what we're talking about with Bellevue Ranch. Alpharetta is another one. CP 42, or Merced Regional Sports Complex, is only 2/3 complete. We have a community walking trail, we have a sixth field, we have additional courts that we haven't built out there yet, and the rest of the parking lot. So there's a lot of unfunded projects that have already been dedicated as park projects in the community. So we need to continue to pursue funding resources to design, construct, and maintain all of those. 4.7, establish clear standards for the type, quality, and functional characteristics of parkland. This was a key interest of one of our council members. When developers come in, if they're going to develop a neighborhood park, okay, what features do neighborhood parks require in the city of Merced? If you're going to build a community park, what features does a community park require? Those standards change over time, right? Applegate Park right now, the biggest issue we have at Applegate Park is lack of parking. That's a regional park that went from serving 50,000 residents to 100,000 residents in a century. So it's significantly under-resourced on the parking side, and we don't have a bus stop anywhere outside of M Street at Applegate Park. There's no bus stop, and we don't even have sidewalks from P to R. We have Kittyland, we have the zoo, we have a playground, and no sidewalks. So up there, underneath John and Marcus, we have infrastructure and maintenance, and that's a illustration of what sidewalks could look like and do for foot traffic at Applegate Park. We want people to have clear walking paths to get to those facilities. And so we want to make sure that when we build regional parks, when we build community parks, when we build neighborhood parks, mini parks, linear parks, that we have clear standards. And right now we don't. So when developers come in, they kind of shoot from the hip what they think will fly or what they'd like to see. And it's up to us to kind of argue our point. But when we have the standards of what parks are supposed to have, that creates a menu of requirements, and we just give them the to-do list. Your park can be situated in these areas, but it has to have X, Y, Z. 4.8, create position-specific Parks and Recreation-centric professional development plans. This is really big. This is something that we'll be doing relatively soon. Basically, it says if you're a park and recreation ball field person, this is what you have to do to maintain certification, maintain a certain level of training, to complete your evaluation on an annual basis. If you're a zookeeper, these are your requirements. If you're a director, these are your requirements. Right now, we have minimum qualifications, MQs. And once you get hired, it becomes very subjective how well you're doing your job and if you're staying on top of your game for your said area of expertise. So we want to create specific professional development plans so that we know we have a healthy workforce that is also preparing us for succession planning. I probably will move on at some point in my career from Parks and Community Services. Harveen may move on from Parks and Community Services, and we want to make sure that the people that we are working alongside or that we are training underneath us have the ability to succeed us. We don't want to lose that institutional knowledge. Standards of practices are great. What's even better are standards of practice in the hands of qualified, experienced staff. So we want to build those professional development plans across our system so that people see a career ladder and areas of growth for them professionally in our sector. Expand training and enhance the use of rec management software. Marcus, you brought this up earlier about utility. Commissioner Holloway and both of you also mentioned this, like the communication side. We finally have a online registration software. So how many services have we done through RecTrack now? Junior Giants, adult softball, swim program all summer. shade structure reservations, our leisure class signups, our NFL flag football program.
It's still in person, I think.
Which
For that
one?
The flag footballs. Oh, it was? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we're rolled it out this summer, and we've gotten probably about 60-40 split online versus in person, which is a huge resource for our community. Being able to register, I used that Beijing example earlier, you know, with your experience wanting to be more customer friendly. Being able to register, we definitely have bugs, just like every implementation does. Harveen's been fantastic, along with our IT department, who's hanging on by a thread back there. Thank you, guys. They've been absolutely fantastic supporting our transition with the software. That's definitely not our guru forte area, but we've been able to add some significant capacity to our registration system. We're going to be doing some vetting of other things like hunting permits, being able to do that registration online, regional sports complex reservations for tournaments or league play online as well. So we got some great stuff down the pike as far as that goes. Our last objective for you wonderful commissioners is strengthen interdepartmental collaboration to improve operational efficiency and enhance service quality for Merced residents. This isn't just about our reservation system, but you brought a great point earlier. We have a lot of room for improvement because we have systems that were created a long time ago that where we had different community needs. We're innovating, we're renovating those systems and those interdepartmental operations so that we can be more current and modern with how we're interacting with our community, making sure we're meeting their needs. And I would say one area that this is biggest is what you heard this evening. We have to own the fact that maintenance is managed by another department in Public Works and not in Parks and Community Services. We get maintenance calls all the time, and we provide work orders to Public Works. And sometimes it's a little bit like your siblings saying like, well, you didn't do the dishes. Well, if I didn't do the dishes because you didn't turn the lights on, right? So we have to be better interdepartmentally with collaborating with our public work partners who do a darn good job of trying to make good decisions with limited resources and I mean, we talked about it today, 43 parks, almost 400 acres of open space. That's a lot of trees, grass, and irrigation. We have to be more intentional with our communications and our maintenance management and our interdepartmental relations so we can make sure that we don't have residents coming here complaining about rolling their ankles in an outfield or parents submitting in pictures of red ant bites all over their children from a sports complex. We have to align our operation of our park system with our maintenance and management of our park system, and that's really what we're speaking to here, in addition to some of the street closure and special event issues that were brought up earlier by Commissioner Marcus. So that was a long meeting with a lot of material, but you guys were awesome. I think Harveen and I have our work cut out for us for tomorrow to make sure we get this done and on an agenda for you by tomorrow evening. Is there anything that after going through all this, you're like, I can't believe you didn't put a dog park in South Merced?
Can't believe it.
Are you guys okay with what we've suggested that we sign up to try to accomplish over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say for the new considerations, I really did want to see more outdoor free events, like or even paid events, like you guys said about the concerts,
Yeah.
the regional ones, or other things being brought, new different concepts, ideas that are, you know, culturally that involve young, old, all different types.
I know, I was too.
I think we talked about it, but I didn't know if that was something, like, if there was specifics, because I saw we had 2 other papers, but we didn't use them, so.
Yeah, let's throw that on there and see if we could do that as part of Community Connection somewhere. If you want to just put a new consideration, include free or paid community events in community connection priority. And I'll take a look at where that could fit.
I have a question. Are you doing the Couch to 5K for the Yosemite?
Am I doing it?
Yeah, this year.
I didn't plan on it, but a challenge accepted, Commissioner. Okay.
I signed
All
up
right.
for it, so I'll be there with you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I like
Thank you very
even
much.
Like the 5K, 10K, like that would be something that I think is like how you guys have the paid events that
Yes.
are being, offered. But
Yes.
things like that are like even like a bike-a-thon or like,
Yeah.
like little things.
Well, we did do this spring, I don't know if any of you were able to make it, but we did in April, a Parent and Me fun run. And that was really cool. We did it at Rahiley Park, and we had the zoo bring some animals out, and we did henna painting, and we did rock painting, and we added to the rock snake at Rahiley Park, going under the bike path. So, and that was totally free, but that was because we got funding from First Five. So we'll continue to look for partnerships, but I think that's a really good place, is to add it to the community connection section, because what I'm hearing from you is more opportunities to
Gather.
come together as a
Yes,
community and
yes.
celebrate our unique
Even like little things. like-
shared things.
Yeah, like even if like you had like a reading day in the park, right?
Sure.
And so like you're not having to have too much staff come out, but people are out there and they
Yes.
bring a book and they sit on their little blanket and, or like,
Yeah.
just outdoor type stuff.
Yeah.
Get people outside.
Great idea. Great idea. Okay, so that's all that we have to present on this topic. If you guys want to consider making a motion, just to revisit what those options were, we've already established that there was some refinement necessary. So option 3 or 2 would be the motion where we want to recommend consideration of revisions, and then we'll bring those for your consideration Monday.
So that would be option 3.
Yeah,
recommend
3.
Consider
Uh-huh.
revisions, okay.
I want to make a motion to adopt option 3.
And I second that motion.
Any discussion?
I think it was just.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, item F, business, request to add items to future agenda. Okay, hearing none, that's done for.
Sorry, can we add like an update on Johor Park for our community members? Follow up on that?
If I can ask, could we have that, I know it's a little bit
Do it
far out,
Monday?
but
Oh, even further.
I cannot do it by Monday because we would have to have there's a lot to
September.
discuss, but in September, I'll have an update for the
Okay.
commission.
Little side note on that, there's like a trailer park, like that parks there all the time. Has that been, have they been talked to about leaving? Okay,
We're not agendized to talk about that, but I can follow up with you after the meeting.
okay.
Will we bring back our community member or just update them? How would that work?
Well, I can definitely reach out to Mr. Eber. Like he shared, he's a city staff. So I think he just wanted to make sure that you guys had it on your radar. And I'll be following up with staff about some of his concerns tomorrow as well. But we have a great update to share with you. There's a lot of pending renovations going on out there. It's just funding situation. We've acquired funding, but it's going to take us some time to get it so that we can actually put it into construction.
All it takes is time and money.
Yeah.
Okay, item G, adjournment. We need a motion.
A motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, the way I do things very informally, all those in favor, get out of here. All those opposed, stick around and shoot the breeze.
Aye.
so much.